Hi, this is Ren.
This is KC.
And this is All Walks of Film.
Hashtag DCpointments episode.
Yeah, so over the past couple weeks and the past day...
past couple hours, essentially.
Yeah, DC has released several trailers. Right now they're coming out with their own streaming service called DCUniverse.
Yuck.
Which is going to feature pretty much all of their previous films. So, like the Tim Burton Batman...
Batman the animated series, a lot of the animated films such as Under the Red Hood, Year One, all the things you actually liked in DC.
Yeah, also they are releasing the Batman the animated series in high definition, which is something that we haven't had before. So if you use Amazon Prime and watch it, you're not getting a high definition transfer.
I'm sorry, as somebody with glasses, I feel like high-definition transfers of animation aren't always really that different.
Well, especially cel shading when, you're not doing much with it. I mean, it does look crisper, which is nice, but you're not losing...
Does it look different? Is it really worth it? Probably not that big a deal. That just seems like, okay, that's nice if you have it, but...
The biggest selling feature, though, is... kind of like with Marvel Unlimited, you're going to have access to the comics on that as well, so you can read
all of the comics that have ever come out, because that would be attractive. If you're just talking about fucking Rebirth and New 52, there's no goddamn reason to do that.
Well, if it's like Unlimited, that would sort of be like what it is.
So that would be a way that people could actually watch original Wonder Woman comics. That is attractive.
Now, the extent of that, I'm not sure, but given that they're trying to hook a lot of people on board, they need to do a lot better than what this Titans show is. All right, so people already were mad about Teen Titans Go.
They were already mad about Teen Titans Go, which already looked terrible, but then they were also already mad about this Titans series. Not because there was a lot of information released about it necessarily, but one big problem was there was a photograph that was released of the actors on set in costumes, and everyone was upset that it looked like shit. And I want to say out of the gate, that is absolutely not the fault of any of the actors, but except for Robin, they do all look like complete fucking garbage. That is on a studio system that has so much money that they can pump into costuming, hair and makeup, styling, even CG, CG and effects and lighting and all these things. But the styling is atrocious. They all look fucking terrible. And the reason why people are upset is they're like, dude, amateur cosplayers look better than you. Amateur cosplayers working out of what they have in their closet on a micro budget.
Yeah,
have enough love and dedication to make something that looks better than what you have. If you can't get the characters to look good, how are you going to have a series that's, Titans?
Yeah, and emphasize amateur cosplayers, because, there are professional cosplayers that oftentimes have better costumes than you will see in movies, because they have the time to actually make the costumes that even studios won't put in the effort to do.
Or they have the money to pay people who can make the costumes more often.
Well, that's true. And half the time, those models aren't necessarily huge fans. They're just posing because they look like the people. Mm-hmm. But that being said, so the special effects look terrible.
The lighting looks terrible.
Oh my god,
the lighting? Styling is bad.
It looks like visually
it's a fucking flaming a flaming pile of garbage would be more interesting to look at, honestly.
Visually, it looks like early WB stuff. I'm not talking about even when it was, I'm not talking about the CW stuff, because some of that stuff actually looks pretty decent now. Arrow, for the most part, the costumes and everything looks pretty decent.
I don't think that it suits the source material necessarily, but the Riverdale show looks visually good.
Is Riverdale part of DC?
It's not part of DC, but it's CW.
Okay. Well, I was talking about, the DC shows that they have, Wonder Woman, World of Tomorrow, and, Did I just say Wonder Woman?
You meant
Sorry,
Supergirl?
Supergirl, World of Tomorrow, and Arrow.
Women aren't all the same, you know.
That was just a slip up on my part.
So the styling is all bad. The visuals are all bad. None of that is new. The DCEU has looked pretty fucking terrible. Really, the only decent looking DCEU movie that exists is Man of Steel. And even that is pretty much just like cylinder block gray the entire time. Like, the color grading's bad. But there are some nice costuming and styling that goes on in Man of Steel, as opposed to like everything else they've done since then.
Well, anytime they emulated Terrence Malick in the movie, it looked great.
Yeah, exactly. So like some of the visuals, the cinematography, the lighting, the styling, the costume work, that stuff was all competent in Man of Steel, and ever since, everything else looks like complete and utter garbage. So that's not new, but people are really mad at the Titans thing. The fuck Batman line. just because
it's so edgy, even though like it doesn't quote unquote edgy, but
edgy, in a Hot Topic way. Like I could literally see going into Hot Topic and getting a fuck Batman tank teeny.
Yeah, it's so funny because like this show like pitched itself. The trailer that we watched, it pitched itself MA, blah blah blah. And I'm watching it, and it's like, this looks like a Y7 show.
Yeah. It's like, really, the only thing that makes it adult is you dropped a fuck bomb and you have a lot of CGI blood in it. That's like the extent of it. There is a lot of violence in the trailer, but it's not very compelling or anything.
Also, the actors that they chose are just, they don't look like they're good actors.
No, they definitely don't look like they're very good actors.
Not even, like, and then you have the costumes.
And then the costumes on top of it, which is not their fault. But then there's been a lot of backlash, not only against the fuck Batman line, which most people just don't like because it feels like a betrayal of Robin's character.
Well,
for the sake of just being edgy and not being really true to the character.
Actually, that's not 100% true, because there was a falling out between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne, and that was pretty major. And yeah, like, I can believe him feeling that, but him actually saying that is just so...
Well, that's the thing. Terrible. It's not that he has animosity against Batman. We've seen that happen. That just does not sound like a thing Robin would say. It's not a sentiment he wouldn't express. That just does not feel like the character. That's really the big problem. But the other thing is, everyone's upset about Raven, with good reason. She's a fucking pussy. And she's like, "Count me, Robin. I need a man to show me my place in all of this." She's terrified of her own power and the darkness within, which is super dumb. A lot of people are upset that it looks like they're pushing for a Raven-Robin romance instead of Raven and Beast Boy. Beast Boy is the worst looking out of everyone in it.
I disagree.
I think Beast Boy looks a lot worse than Starfire.
Oh, dude. Starfire's, like, her hair is so terrible.
I mean, her hair is bad, her costume is bad. I know the costume, it's not the costume from Teen Titans, because this is not necessarily based on the Teen Titans show, it's based on the Titans comics. But a lot of people are pointing out that she looks like a $1 hooker, and it's not because necessarily the articles of clothing, it's the quality of the clothing. She looks fucking cheap. But everyone looks cheap. And a lot of people are mad that she's not, like, they didn't even attempt to do the orange skin, which I would say they should have done the orange skin, but we saw them do the green skin on Beast Boy, and we can see how terrible that is. Why would you double down on that and have two characters look that bad? She already looks bad enough. But Beast Boy looks fucking terrible. He's barely mentioned in it at all, which is sad, because Beast Boy is my favorite. there's the whole Starfire look thing, of course. And then there's the fact that in the trailer, the only thing we see Dove do is be violent. And Dove is not a violent character. Like, if you look at Mad Max Fury Road, she's not Furiosa, she's Angharad. Like, she can be badass, but she's not, like, super violent and bloody and gory. She has these big wings to, like, help protect people and shield people, not to, like, slice their kneecaps open, like, and you know, maim them for life. That's just not in her wheelhouse, and that's the only thing you see of her in the whole trailer.
Now,
so a lot of it just looks super unpromising, really, really doing disservice to, you know, source material and fans. But we all knew this was going to happen. All the Titan fans were already... Oh, and the other big thing is there's no Cyborg. Because they wasted him, and his interesting backstory, and any potential with his character to have him sit on the fucking sidelines in Justice League the whole time. Like, you excluded him from Titan so you could put him in Justice League to just, like, fucking waste his character. What? As a side rant, this is something that's been killing me about DCEU. They keep taking, like, characters and plot points and storylines and completely wasting any potential by utilizing them and just, like, throwing it away. Like, the fact that you had Jimmy Olsen and you murdered him without even establishing who he was. You had, Robin get killed by Harley Quinn off screen and in the past, so you're never gonna see that. You actually did have Harley Quinn try to go on the straight and narrow and become a good guy and fail at that. That's one of my favorite storylines of Harley Quinn. We're never going to get to see that in a movie now. Thanks for establishing that that's all in the past and off screen. Appreciate that. And now you have Cyborg that we're not going to get to establish and get into his backstory and who he is as a character, even though he's a big fan favorite from Titans, because you had to put him in your fucking Justice League movie where he did jack fucking shit. And to be fair, he was the best written character in that piece of crap, and you wasted him to have him do nothing. Why does DCEU keep doing this? You have, like, all of these movies and all of these TV shows and all this shit in the works. Why can't you just, like, take the time to tell the stories you want to tell, and if you're not ready to tell it, don't tell it yet?
Well, yeah, and getting into that seems to be what the other two movies that we're going to talk about seem to be doing. Like, they saw that, yeah, they might have jumped the gun and tried to put everything too late in the storyline. So, like, every single one of these movies, due to the success of Wonder Woman, is now an origin story. So
that's pretty bad too. Like,
you have Shazam, which is an origin story, and then you also have Aquaman, which is an origin story.
Yeah. And then we're gonna get the Flash eventually. That's also gonna be a boring origin story.
What's really interesting about the Flash movie is, like, it's passed over, like, 3 directors now because, like,
no one wants to touch it because no one wants to fuck up the Flash. Like, that's why James Wan is doing Aquaman. He's not picking it because he liked Aquaman. He was given a choice to work on Aquaman and the Flash, and he knew if he fucked up the Flash, people would be pissed. And when he fucked up Aquaman, no one would care because it's Aquaman.
I mean, in my personal opinion, Zack Snyder fucked up Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins doubled down, fucked up Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I know, minority opinion. Everybody thinks that movie is awesome.
Except for the people who actually like Wonder Woman. Put a big neon sign over my head. That's the reason why I fucking hate that movie, is because I actually like Wonder Woman. I'm sure Wonder Woman is a great movie to watch if you really just don't give a shit about the character and you've literally never read any of her comics or seen the animated movie. And, like, your only frame of reference is the fucking live-action TV show where she's on roller skates or whatever. Although I would say that I would rather watch any episode of that TV show over the Patty Jenkins movie. Like, a lot. Because there's at least, like, a certain amount of charm and interest to her in that. Anyway, not the point. To be fair, though, we haven't had a film origin of Wonder Woman. We haven't had a film origin of Aquaman. We haven't had a film origin of Shazam. A lot of people don't even know who the fuck Shazam is.
I mean, it wasn't Wonder Woman a film origin of her character, at least?
No, but that's what I'm saying, is like, at least they didn't make another Batman origin movie.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like, we don't have an Aquaman origin movie. So making that isn't the worst idea in the world. The problem is that they're all fucking identical. Like, just from the looks of it. They're all going to be the same as each other, and they're all going to be riffing on whatever is super popular from the MCU, and not what works for their actual source material or their characters.
Yeah, and I know part of the reason why they're doing it is because they got criticized for being so dark, and I don't really think that darkness was a big problem with the DC movies. I thought it was the writing.
Bland.
Yeah, I thought it was the writing. I thought it was the story, and I thought it was the characters.
Nobody complained that the Chris Nolan films were too dark. Parents who were taking their 7-year-old kids to see The Dark Knight were not complaining that it was too dark. So when fans of the DC universe and DC comics, which have been dark and gritty and violent and super nihilistic and existential and philosophical for decades now, are complaining that it's too dark. They're not complaining, like, it's not that it's too dark. Visually, it is way too dark. But it's just fucking bland. It's not interesting, it's not compelling, it's not character-driven, it's dumb.
Well, and it seems like what they've done is double down on that and tried to make things a lot more lighthearted. And, also, I did hear that the Justice League movie was... they weren't sure if it was going to be part of the full universe, so this is sort of a reboot. I'm not really sure, like, how the...
Oh, because they keep
on
teasing that there is going to be a Flashpoint paradox where they're going to, like, completely start from scratch in an alternate universe. Dude, I don't hope so, because the only way you can completely start from scratch is if you completely scrap the directors, scrap the writers, scrap your casting, and legit start an entire new franchise. You can't just take the same actors and the same directors and the same writers and have them start over with, like, a different storyline and have that actually solve fucking anything.
Well, yeah, I heard that Jeff Johns was, like, working on the DCEU, and then, like, he dropped out or something. I'm sorry, I don't have the information, like, right on hand about that, but they are still trying to figure out what Kevin Feige and folks have been doing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, they're still trying to figure it out with DC. And, like, quite frankly, I think that they shouldn't be trying to make 3 movies to come out in 1 year, because...
That's why everything looks like garbage. You're putting too much money.
I think Aquaman comes out this year, but does Shazam come out this year?
I don't think so. I'm not entirely sure about the release orders, but when you look at Batman v Superman, and then you look at Wonder Woman, and then you look at Justice League, and then you look at Titans, and then you look at Shazam, and then you look at Aquaman, it's super fucking apparent that you're spending a lot of money and getting really shitty looking content, and I'm not gonna blame the artists and the people in the studios, because there is a lot of money being thrown around on these movies, which theoretically is a good thing, because you would actually be paying for good services, except for the fact that you are pushing them way, way, way too hard to meet impossible deadlines that you can't produce good quality content. It's also affecting their animated stuff. The Killing Joke looks like ass because they made the entire animation for the movie happen in less than 6 months between 5 different studios. That's why that looks like garbage. If you just, like, gave it some time to breathe, gave one studio a year to work on it, you would have had a good looking movie, because there's a lot of good animation in the movie. You hired talented artists to do their craft, and you told them to do it that, move faster, go now. And there is no reason to have a timeline on The Killing Joke, except for the fact that they were trying to compete with Deadpool. That was the only reason. They were trying to compete with Deadpool, so they pushed it too hard. They're trying to compete with the MCU, even though they came in way too fucking late, and that's what's pushing them too hard. You need to just step back, take a breather, actually look at your fucking content, hire the people who can do the work, give time to pre-production and figure out what the fuck you're doing with your entire goddamn franchise while you're just throwing movie deals and ideas and contracts on the wall without any idea of what you're actually committing to or what's actually going to happen because you're waiting to see what the fuck Marvel does before you do anything. Stop it. That's literally ruining the entire franchise. Besides, just the presence of Zack Snyder.
Alright, so let's get into our next movie. Aquaman. So,
yeah.
Aquaman is directed by James Wan, who worked on, I believe, the Conjuring movies.
He also, if you couldn't tell from the title card for Aquaman, he also worked on Star Trek. Because Aquaman looks like Star Trek. Why? Why? If there's one movie that shouldn't look like Star Trek, well, two. Wonder Woman shouldn't look like Star Trek. Aquaman should not look like Star Trek. Yeah, it looks very similar to Wonder Woman. It seems to have a lot of the same problems. The visual effects look pretty terrible. The styling is awful. There's a love interest with red hair that's clearly just like a really, really terrible wig. They're also doubling down on this bizarre thing that they did specifically with Wonder Woman, where you're taking an actor who's a person of color and casting them in a white role, which in and of itself is not really a problem. There's no inherent reason for Wonder Woman to be white. There's no inherent reason for Aquaman to be white. But you're doubling down on, no, they are 100% white. In this case with Aquaman, his parents are very white. His half-brother is super white.
And he's not adopted.
He's not adopted. No, he's biologically related to everyone.
And I gotta say, that is a phenomenon that happens sometimes, so, but, looking at his brother who's a merman, you can't even make that argument either, so it's
Yeah, you can't even just be well, he's tan from me. I mean, he's a white and tan, is what they're trying to say, which doesn't make any goddamn sense. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, those are some serious recessive genes there. Mm-hmm.
But they did the exact same goddamn thing with Wonder Woman, where they're oh, by the way, you're biologically related to all these people, and the child actress who plays you is super white. You're totally just a slightly tan white chick.
And you can't talk without an accent, so we're going to get the entire cast of Amazons to emulate your accent so that it makes sense.
But we're talking about Aquaman. So, I mean, it just looks so fucking tired, He's half human, half mer person. People bully him, and then that awakens a power deep inside him he didn't know exists. I'm meh. It's such ridiculous shorthand. You get the entire thing from 5 seconds of footage in a trailer. It's dull, it's boring, we've seen it.
And it also looks like the Black Panther movie when it comes to
that's what I wanted to bring up. The story is Black Panther, except for in this case, the Killmonger character who's been in the outside world and is returning to claim his rightful throne is the good guy, and the guy who's been there the entire time is the bad guy. But there's no other difference except for the fact that they're white and underwater. The city is totally Wakanda, which Wakanda was totally Themyscira. There's a lot of inbreeding with the ideas. They're all the exact same fucking story. This secret, technologically superior town and civilization that's been hidden from society, full of people who are better than human beings. Super, super overdone. We've seen it a bunch.
I mean,
the
but
city
that's
looks
been the
fucking
general
bad.
idea of Atlantis, though.
No, that's always been the idea
fair.
of Atlantis, but this is a really dumb-looking Atlantis. Again, every fucking American sci-fi film looks the exact same, goddamn same, except for, some of the more independent sci-fi films that could kind of get away with being a little bit different. Arrival, to its credit, doesn't look like every other fucking sci-fi film. This looks like every other sci-fi film. It looks like RoboCop. It looks like Blade Runner. It looks like, you've got the big cities with the skyscrapers and the blue and pink colors, and instead of flying cars, you have giant sea turtles that function like flying cars. Even underwater, you can't get away from the same fucking design.
But to be fair, that kind of is what the comics have been doing for the longest time, though.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. As long as you're not paying any attention to what the comics are doing anyway, make it better. If you're really just not going to give a shit and shit all over the fans anyway, and you're literally banking on nobody giving a shit about Aquaman or the source material or the lore, which is what James Wan was doing, can you at least make it look good or interesting? And also, all the merman designs suck. Now, Aquaman's designs have pretty much always sucked. Like, we all know that it was time to give it the, the gritty, updated, we're getting rid of the red underwear now, we're putting Wonder Woman in a kilt, which is kind of a cool idea, except for you just did it to give her a bunch of up-the-skirt panty shots. It's
and
time...
make her look exactly like Xena.
I wish she looked more like Xena. God, I wish she looked more like Xena. So, it is time to change the outfits, make everything look a little bit more modern.
But I heard that other outfit is coming back. The one with the orange scales and the green bottom.
I mean, they're trying to do more of a gold than an orange to make it look a little bit better. They all kind of wear, scuba diver-esque bodysuits, which I don't necessarily like. And you can say, a lot of this is because of the comics, but look at Wonder Woman's outfit. Her outfit was made specifically for the movie, and then the comics adapted based on her costuming for the movie.
Really,
Why can't you do that again?
Really, the only character in this movie that really looks like a character from the comics is Black Mantis.
Mm-hmm.
He looks exactly like he does in the comics, but, all you had to do was get the right helmet, and you're pretty much set with that.
This has been an ongoing problem with, all of the characters. Wonder Woman at least had, an on-paper better design for her outfit. Now, none of the outfits actually work for her or her body type, and they're all too fucking tiny and skimpy anyway, and they make her look naked and give it excuses to look at her fucking butt under her skirt. But on paper, as a design, it's a better design. Mm-hmm. Besides that, everyone else has terrible-looking outfits. You updated Batman's outfit, it looks fucking awful. You updated Superman's outfit, it looks fucking awful. Minus Man of Steel. Man of Steel at least, put some interesting texture work into the suit that was interesting. But then after that went away.
Was decent,
the Flash was decent, but it still wasn't great. Cyborg could have been better if he wasn't entirely CGI'd and they didn't have enough time to actually do his CGI suit. He just ends up looking like the Green Lantern.
And say what you will about Christian Bale's voice, that was the coolest Batsuit, especially in The Dark Knight Rises, because they finally allowed him to move his head.
I concur.
With that
absolutely
outfit.
Agree, which is a big part of the reason why the RoboCop Batman outfit in Batman v Superman is super egregious, because you recessed from the advancements that were already made in the live-action Batman
they were trying to
evolution.
They were trying to emulate the Dark Knight Returns mech suit that he had to fight Superman in that.
But here's my thing. The Aquaman character designs are fucking boring. Everyone just looks like a human in a slightly shiny scuba diver outfit. And it's dull, and it's boring, and you're trying to make them look a little bit more respectable in terms of, not being super cheesy mer people, except for the love interest. You really tried to make her look like Ariel, so, you weren't really avoiding that. I would say if there's any fucking thing you should emulate with mer people and Atlantis and an underwater society and cool underwater monsters, I would say, why are you not drawing more inspiration from the Spiderwick Chronicles? Not the movie. The books, the illustrations, the field guide. They had very sophisticated, beautiful, intriguing, very intrinsic, a large variety of different styles of, underwater mer people. Some people who were a little bit more humanoid, some people who were a little bit more hybrid, some people who were really, really aquatic or amphibian looking. Lots of playing with beautiful oceanic colors that you would genuinely see underwater. Some stuff that's genuinely very creepy and scary and deep sea anglerfish style. It's just like, oh god, why does that exist? That's gonna haunt my nightmares forever. There was so much like really interesting, gorgeous work in that. If you're gonna emulate anything, why are you emulating Blade Runner and not emulating something like that? Like, you're an underwater society, go more fantasy. Why are you going more science fiction?
I mean, well...
Like, do something different.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but, a lot of that is coming from the comics, and, like, the comics, it has been pretty simple, as far as that goes. Like, yeah, there's, the whole city of Atlantis, that's advanced, and there's some, like, fantasy stuff going on, but, like, for the most part, like, They haven't gone too out there with Aquaman, like, ever, like, in the comics.
To the point where, like, this movie looks fucking boring. You needed to do something different and interesting, and not the same goddamn movie we've already seen a billion times. It looks dull.
I don't think we've seen
the
this
comics,
movie a billion times.
I feel like we have. We've seen this movie a lot, and we've seen better movies that are more interesting. Like, I would, like, just looking at the two trailers... The trailer for Splash makes a better case for itself than the trailer for Aquaman.
Okay, but I will say, like, one thing that I did think was cool about the trailer was all the people riding fish at the end. I know, it's cheesy as hell, but, like, that's what I was invested in.
The underwater monster fight looks awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. No. I'm with you on that.
That's one of those things where it's like... Yeah, if you're going to be the fucking ridiculous movie, be the fucking ridiculous movie. Double down on that shit.
And I don't think they will. I don't think they will, because that was the best footage in the entire trailer.
It's probably going to cost too much to do that kind of stuff, too.
It's going to cost too much. It's going to take too much time. They only advertised it in, like, 2 or 3 seconds of their, like, 2.5 minute long trailer. I guarantee you, just like Batman v Superman, they're advertising it, and it's going to be, like, 5 minutes of screen time.
I mean, the same thing with Wonder Woman. Like, most of that movie was not action.
Most of it was not action, and the action was very cheap, very badly done, because they didn't have an actress with the skills to pull it off. They didn't have enough time to do... They didn't have enough time to use the stunt double and to use special effects to even things out. They didn't have enough time to work out the problems with the script. They didn't put enough time into goddamn any part of it, which is why that shit sucks. But getting back to the actual Aquaman, the point I was trying to make about, like, we've already seen this movie a bunch of times. Because they're falling so hard on making it look like every other DCEU movie, they're trying so hard at making it look like fucking Star Trek, they're trying to make it look like science fiction movies. You hired a sci-fi writer or director to work on your movie. It was a bad idea. It was a bad call. But we've seen RoboCop. We've seen Star Trek. We've seen the new Star Trek movies. We've seen Blade Runner and Blade Runner. And we've seen the mystical city and all of this stuff. We've seen the historical, sort of historical fiction sci-fi element. We've seen the wartime stuff. If there was one movie to deviate from the source material when your plan A was to not give a shit about the fans and not give a shit about the source material and know for a fact that if you deviated from the source material that the fans wouldn't be that mad at you because nobody cares about Aquaman because he's fucking lame anyway, why can't you at least do something we haven't seen in the DCEU and we haven't seen in a big blockbuster movie in a long time? We haven't really had a good fantasy epic in a while. Why can't you at least, like, bring in elements? And not like there's no crossover between sci-fi and fantasy. You could have done, like, an interesting meld and that would have been fine. It's just, why can't you just, like, take something that isn't exactly the same fucking goddamn movie we've seen multiple times a year, every year for the past 5 fucking years? And the reason is because you put no time in pre-production. There's no time to brainstorm and make things look better. People just look at the most recent movie that's come out and they vomit that up on a paper and it gets approved and it goes out into the world and it's fucking boring.
And I get it. They're doubling down on the fact that, but you haven't seen it underwater, and that's...
That's not good enough.
Right,
That's not good enough.
There is a big problem with studio movies, especially superhero movies, being the fact that a lot of these movies are being put into pre-production before you even have a fucking script.
Oh, sometimes they get filmed before there's even, like, filming starts before there's a script, and that's bad too.
And that really needs to stop. You know, I think that if that is the case, and I know that there are writer strikes, but if your fucking writers suck, hire better fucking writers.
Well,
what, you know, maybe cough up some fucking money. Maybe cough up some money to get some better fucking writers than all these fucking visual effects that you have that fucking look like ass.
I agree, and there needs to be more practical work being done and a better blend of practical and special effects. And not just relying on a green screen for everything.
I get that practical is expensive, but
it looks better and it lasts longer.
You also don't have people laughing at it. And you know, going in with visual effects and, you know, practical effects, The Shape of Water, another movie that features a lot of underwater shit, was shot for $20 million.
Less than that. I think it was shot for $19.5 million. And Guillermo del Toro said this was a $70 million movie at minimum. And he still made it work primarily with special effects. There were some visual effects put in, and there was a lot of visual effects put in, mostly to smooth a lot of the transitioning work. And I don't want to put down visual effects artists. Their work is amazing.
And they get underpaid
like nobody's fucking business. That's for damn sure. Absolutely, completely on board.
I had a special effects person who worked on Titanic and Transformers, working on a short film of mine.
I'm gonna say something positive about The Force Awakens.
What's that?
Everyone kind of remembers this big scene at the beginning that's like sort of a good flavoring, bringing in some of the background concept of Rey as a character through a prop. And it's the special effects prop. She goes to the counter and she buys like a measly portion, less than what she expected, of like this little inflated bread. You know, you just add water and it becomes bread. And she goes home and she cooks it up. And you see a practical effect of that happening. And it's something everyone remembers because it was a very deliberate pause in the story that gave everyone a breather, some time to get a feeling for the tone. It looked very good. And people remember it because that kind of reflected a lot of her upbringing and where she was in her life. It said a lot without saying anything. And it didn't take a lot of screen time, but it left an impact because it was super important. The reason I bring that up is A, it was entirely practical, which is nice, but more importantly, do you know how long they spent on that piece of bread in pre-production? Not only on this one thing, but do you know how long it took them to design and create this inflatable piece of bread?
I don't know.
6 months. Now, balanced with everything else, and most of it wasn't the mechanics of how the special effects would work, a lot of it went into the design of the bread. But they had 6 months to work on this one little moment that left a big impact on a lot of people because they had enough time in their pre-production because it was the first film. Now, when you move on to The Last Jedi, which had the most practical puppeteering effects of any Star Wars film ever, it looks like ass because you didn't plan the pre-production correctly. They were super fucking naive and thought they could do all the puppetry work live, and then they had to course correct a lot of that stuff after they got the footage by drawing all over these gorgeous practical effects with fucking CGI that made it look laughable and like shit, and most people couldn't even tell they were practical effects because you erased a lot of the good work of brilliant mechanics and artists who spent a lot of hard work to make these things happen because you couldn't give them enough goddamn time to do pre-production. This has been the ongoing problem with the DCEU in every single element. In terms of their design work, in terms of their screenwriting, in terms of their character development, in terms of choosing what goddamn story they're even going to do for their next movie.
Well, also, like, how many fucking films are they greenlighting when they haven't gotten a single fucking hit outside of Wonder Woman?
And honestly, they're not. As a franchise, the franchise is not profitable. It is not. Because they're sinking so much money into contract work and rights work. The sad thing is I said, like, it's great that you have all this money being thrown around, but the problem is that's not going to It's not going to the people who need to be doing it. It's not going to storyboard artists. It's not going to screenwriters. It's not going to stylists. It's not going to VFX artists. It's going towards putting actors under vicious contracts and obtaining the rights to use like characters and storylines. And they're doing it for so many goddamn movies that they're not even sure if it's even going to be produced or if it's even going to come out or what they want to do with the franchise. They just know that they want the rights, and that's where all the money is being funneled into. And it's garbage.
There are 2 Joker movies coming out.
4! There are 4 Joker movies coming out. Why are there 4 Joker movies coming out when nobody likes the Joker?
There are like 5 Batman movies coming out, but like we don't even know who the fuck Batman's going to be because Ben Affleck apparently is
doesn't want to do it. Yeah, nobody wants him to do it.
I'm still excited to see what Matt Reeves does, but like
I'm gonna be excited if Matt Reeves does it because he said as soon as they try to push me into doing something I don't want to do with Batman, I'm walking, and that's fine. Yeah, so if something comes out, you know it's actually going to be a Matt Reeves movie.
Yeah, my only concern is, you know, kind of like what I like with the animated movies. I want this to be a standalone piece. I don't want it to be related to the DCEU because the DCEU right now has disappointed me so much that I don't want to think about it when I'm watching DC movies.
That's true. But also, to clarify, when I said nobody likes the Joker, I mean very specifically the Joker from Suicide Squad, which is the Joker that they're moving forward with their next 4 fucking Joker movies that are
but they're also doing one with Joaquin Phoenix, which is kind of interesting. Like I could kind of see Joaquin Phoenix playing the Joker just because after seeing Gladiator, that's one performance where it's like I can kind of see you as the Joker. Granted, I think he's a little old to play the Joker, unless you're doing something like The Dark Knight Returns. It does seem kind of weird. You know, also, he's kind of a bigger guy, and I like my Joker skinny.
He has a very distinctive face.
Yeah.
Which was a problem with the Suicide Squad Joker, is Jared Leto's distinctive face was really distracting and terrible. He looks like he's 12 in that entire fucking movie. It's like watching Ariana Grande sing about how she's like this amazing sex goddess and you have to love her harder, and she looks like she's 10 and it just skeeves you out and you're like, stop talking about your sexuality, it's gross. It's like that with Joker where he's like, I'm the Joker and I'm super sexual and I'm this amazing guy and, you know, she's the heat of my loins. And it's like, you look like you're 10. Stop talking about sex. I'm sick of it. You're not intimidating. I feel like I could curb stomp you like a roach. You're tiny and young. Stop it. There were a lot of other problems, but they don't have enough time to fix the problem of Joaquin Phoenix also has a very distinctive face. He's gonna look like Joaquin Phoenix the whole time. Although it is funny that out of anything they're doubling down on, they're like, well, we're only gonna hire people who are legitimate assholes to women to play Joker. Yeah, that's better than casting him to be like the feminist Jesus. That's a little bit better.
I will say it is kind of funny that you mentioned that because, you know, the other franchise that Warner Brothers is trying to push is the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Oh, God. And everyone's mad because you brought fucking Johnny Depp back to be the villain in that when everyone just wanted Colin Farrell to be the villain to begin with. But then also, like, why are you still hiring this asshole? J.K. Rowling, you have the authority to get him fired. What are you doing?
I mean, the whole stuff with him and Amber Heard, which kind of an interesting situation that we're in because Amber Heard is the mermaid chick. So like Johnny Depp's ex-wife, that whole thing, you know. So like it all it comes around. So
for the record, Fantastical Beasts and Where to Find Them as a franchise has all of these exact same goddamn problems. It looks like crap. It's not nearly as good as Harry Potter because you're not putting enough time and resources into the production design and into the writing, and also it was just a dumb idea to begin with. Not that a sort of fictional biopic of Newt Scamander couldn't have been a good idea, but it wasn't. And to be fair, Eddie Redmayne was actually really good casting. It's like the one good casting choice that they've made in the past like 5-6 years.
I also like Kowalski. Like,
Kowalski was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do agree, but, like, there's a whole other movie around those two people that you have to, like, bear through. Ugh. So, getting back to Aquaman, the other big thing, besides the fact that I think it should have been more fantasy-oriented, actually, if you're gonna bring in The Little Mermaid as an influence anyway, when I was growing up, like the many, many years that I watched The Little Mermaid over and over again, even though I hated Ariel, a big part of it was because I really liked the underwater kingdom that they had. There was a lot of, like, beautiful design work and lots of, like, really interesting visuals and scenery and a lot of really cute, like, kind of jokes about, like, the way the underwater society would function. And I'm not talking about, like, the cheesy opera that King Triton makes all of his daughters do, which is super weird and creepy and dictatorial. But there was a lot of, like, really beautiful fantasy drawings and paintings throughout the movie that are super gorgeous. And Ursula as a villain was always really intriguing, like, how she could be that creepy and how, like, her lair can be that scary to look at. And there was a really great mix of, like, the beauty and the terror of the deep throughout the film from a production design level. Why can't you make it look more like The Little Mermaid? I'm not saying make them look like the characters, but if you made Atlantis look more like The Little Mermaid, which I think kind of is Atlantis, it would look a lot better.
The Little Mermaid is Atlantis.
It is Atlantis for all intents and purposes, yeah. But that would be much better than what they did. But the other thing, too, is Aquaman. You know, he's the title character. It's called Aquaman. It's his origin. His character is super dumb. I mean, his character was really lame in Justice League. All he does is kind of say, like, my man, you know, super lame. Yeah. And in this one, though, there's, like, a real identity crisis with who the fuck Aquaman is, because they're trying to make him say, like, purportedly funny lines, like, you know, that's the worst pep talk I've ever had. Ever. Or, like, redheads are more fun. Woohoo! I'm gonna jump out of a plane. And you hired... Thank God you casted someone with as much charisma as Jason Momoa. I don't give a shit if you tried to, like, have a white tan character. At least it's fucking Jason Momoa.
Though he couldn't save Conan.
He couldn't save Conan, but, like, at least you could kind of save Conan if you turned it on mute. You know, all the guys who watch the L Word on mute, like, you can't judge me for saying that. But you have, like, oh, he's the fun, rock and roll, edgy kind of character. Except for you also had him say, like, all of the cheesiest fucking lines that every superhero just kind of has to say. I'm here because I had no choice, you know. I have superpowers, but in the end, I couldn't even save the ones I loved. And it's like, who the fuck is Aquaman? And he has the least screen time out of anybody in the trailer. Like, I get, we all know Aquaman is in it, but, like, you spend so much time establishing what the story is, establishing what the locations are going to be. Oh, here are his parents, and here's his origin story, and here's how he was bullied in high school, or in elementary school. And here's how, you know, his half-brother wants to, you know, is ruling Atlantis, so now he has to go challenge this. Why do I need to know all that information, and I can't know who the fuck Aquaman is in your 2.5 minute long trailer? Who the fuck is Aquaman? It's not like I know that from Justice League, because he's barely in there, and if you cut him out, it make no goddamn difference. Except for, it would make no goddamn difference. At least I got to, like, look at his butt a few times, you know, and it makes a little bit of difference, but not much.
I will say, I know that there's been some speculation about it, but if the Zack Snyder cut of that comes out, I do actually kind of want to see it just as a comparison.
Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, that movie was so bad it was actually kind of enjoyable, I'm not gonna lie.
It's the most watchable of the DCEU films.
I would say Man of Steel more, but, like, I'm kind of partial to that because, you know, I thought some of the visuals were cool. I did like the stuff with Zod. I thought Michael Shannon did play a compelling villain.
Oh, he definitely did. I absolutely agree with that. I think part of the reason why you like him more than I do is because I had actually thought for several years about how I would want a movie coming at Superman from this angle to go.
Oh.
So I already had a lot of expectations for what I wanted out of the movie, and I was disappointed.
Well, based on the trailer, I originally thought it was going to be about Superman discovering who he is, like Clark Kent discovering who he is as Superman, and the end being him flying. Now that would be a very different movie.
That would be a better movie.
But that could be like really interesting. Like, oh wow, I have these powers, but I don't understand. And then having the talk with his parents about like how he was adopted and all this kind of stuff, and that like coming to realization. That would be an origin story that would be kind of antithetical to any origin stories that we've seen before. Obviously, I get that a lot of people would be like, oh, well, it's a Superman movie without Superman.
But that's a better origin film if you're going to go that route.
Yeah.
That being said, you got all of that from the trailer. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is I had a very pronounced bias against the movie from the start because Tim Burton had planned that Superman movie with Nick Cage, and while the Nick Cage... The Nick Cage element is laughable.
Spiders.
No. The spiders thing would have been stupid. The Nick Cage thing would have been stupid. But what he was pitching the movie as was the core concept was going to be... And while I do actually really, really like a lot of the stories that focus on Clark Kent being an immigrant, like in a more sort of like realistic, allegorical kind of sense, Tim Burton's initial idea was he wanted to focus on how Superman was an alien and how he was having a lot of problems coming to grips with himself as a person because he's an alien among humans. And a lot of it was going to be about like how he couldn't understand his powers because there was no one around him to guide him, how he felt, as it were, alienated from people around him, and a lot of the sort of internal struggle of that, and then like a lot of the problems of him with his parents because his parents are sort of like people who love him, but they're humans and he's not, and it was going to mostly focus on those elements of it. And that concept, like, completely, like, it was like a splinter in my mind. I thought about that a lot for many, many years, and when we saw the Man of Steel trailer, I was like, oh my god, somebody made that movie, but without the spiders and without Nick Cage. That's amazing. That's the movie I wanted to see for years. Oh my god, this is going to be like the best Superman film ever made. This is going to be so brilliant and so groundbreaking, and when it wasn't any of those things, and when a lot of that stuff, which is what I was going to the movie to see, was relegated to about 10 minutes of screen time, I was super, super fucking disappointed, and that's a lot of biases. And in that case, it wasn't fair to prejudge the movie because it was the first in the franchise, and I was bringing a lot of expectations from another thing into it. It's a little different than prejudging Aquaman when we already are like 6 movies into a fucking franchise and we have a really good idea of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying, they kind of did a little bit in the Brandon Routh Superman that Bryan Singer did, Superman Returns, which there are some interesting ideas in that film. There's some interesting things that they film in that. Like, I thought the sequence with the plane and the sports stadium and all that kind of stuff was actually pretty compelling. Also, the copying of Daredevil. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Daredevil, but there's a thing that he does at night where he like sits in a water pool so that he can't hear like the screams and all that kind of stuff, so he can actually have a good night's rest. That's what he did in this one.
Oh, like Motoko Kusanagi does in Ghost in the Shell. That's cool.
So that was something that I thought was interesting. That was, taking the alien, I don't understand my powers, I can't control it, in an interesting way, and I kind of agree. Superman is a character that you can easily fuck up, and I feel that he often
has been. Yeah. But the same goes for Aquaman, and that's what this looks like. I don't think even Jason Momoa's hotness is really going to save the movie.
Well, so much so that like there was that whole thing in Robot Chicken where like he's like, I got powers. I can talk to fish.
Speaking of talking to fish. The biggest disappointment, I wanted two things. Sexy Jason Momoa, which may or may not happen at this point. It doesn't look like it. And I wanted fucking Topo! I wanted Topo in this goddamn movie. And there's like 0.5 seconds in the trailer where you see something and maybe it's Topo, because maybe it's like his design from the New 52 series, which is a big part of the reason why I was banking on Topo being in it, was because they mostly focus on the New 52, and Topo is in the New 52. And I really, really wanted Topo to be in the fucking... That's all I want. I want Topo to be a major character in the movie. That's the one thing I want for my fucking Aquaman movie. I want to see Topo on screen. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be disappointed. I don't think he's going to be there. If he is, he's probably going to be like Jimmy Olsen, where he's there and you don't even know because he's like so sidelined. And then the director is going to come out afterwards and be like, no, you guys, we did it for the fans. See, he's in the movie for like a second.
I hate that excuse. And like, quite frankly, when you do that, when you make like subtle references and stuff like that, if you're going to do that, emulate Marvel, where it's like kind of like hints and nudges. Because there's a lot of subtext in those movies where, like, if you're a hardcore fan, you get that little reassurance that, like, they know what they're talking about. But, like, if not, you can still, like, watch it.
Yeah, but you know what that requires?
Not to the point where, like, in Suicide Squad, where there's this whole story about, like, how Robin was killed and how Harley Quinn killed him and, like, all this kind of stuff.
And it was all off screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Past.
And then you're trying to figure out what the fuck happened based on the small details that you have in the film, and then people are like, oh, well, you know, if you just pay attention. No, I don't know, because, like, yeah, that might have happened in the comics, but, you know, movies are oftentimes different, and sometimes...
Especially the DCEU.
Right.
But here's the thing. That requires planning and time during pre-production, which they're not giving. I don't know why all of these high-level studio executives and like seasoned filmmakers think you can get away with making entire franchises with next to no pre-production for every given movie.
Well, they're trying to do what Marvel does, which is come out with 3 movies a year.
But that's because they spend so much time in pre-production for all of those movies. They have time in advance. They do it so far in advance that they plan for the movies to come out like very quickly, because of the way it's been planned out for a really long time before they even started filming and even started editing.
I mean...
MCEU, well, I do want to say for the record, is not very faithful to its source material, and that's the reason why a lot of MCU fans... Like, a lot of people who are fans of the MCU are not necessarily Marvel fans, if you feel me. That's fine, because they're doing their own thing, and they're doing their own planning, and they're actually making decent quality films, even if I don't personally like a lot of them. They're still fucking miles ahead of DCEU.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to get into our final film, which is Shazam. Which, quite frankly, out of the 3 things that we saw, the show, Aquaman, and this, it looks the most enjoyable. Now, the big controversy that was brought up is the outfit looks like ass.
The outfit looks like ass. The other big thing is there was a lot of talk about Black Adam being in the movie, and that was pulled. And Black Adam is not going to be in the movie, and he's going to have his own origin film. Supposedly, maybe, we'll see.
And Black Adam, from my understanding, is played by The Rock.
Mm-hmm. Right, and he's the antagonist. He's the villain character in the Shazam series. The Shazam trailer is really difficult for me to talk about personally, because almost all of what I know about Shazam is actually from the Jeff Smith iteration of Shazam, which is like a 4-issue, one-off storyline. That's most of my backdrop coming from this. But at the same time, even though that does make me super biased, and I know it's not necessarily canonical, I think, and Black Adam is definitely not in it, the part of the reason why I actually feel like maybe that makes me a little less biased is because I don't understand why they're not doing the Jeff Smith iteration, specifically because Warner Brothers has the right to Jeff Smith's original comic series, Bone. And they're attempting to make a movie, and that sounds like it's going to be ass, and it sounds like Jeff Smith is pulling a Nobuhiro Watsuki where he's like really not happy with what they're doing creatively but doesn't want to say so publicly because he doesn't want to be a dick about it. That's a completely other thing. But they're already working with Jeff Smith to make an adaptation of one of his comics, and they've already like legally put down a lot of the groundwork for the rights. So I don't really understand why they're not utilizing his story out of like any Shazam story you could have picked. Just like legally speaking, it seems like you've already done a lot of that stuff. And as we've established, when you're not putting a lot of time into planning and pre-production, why wouldn't you just be like, hey dude, we've already done all this stuff, can you just like also legally hand us the rights to like your one little series you did one time?
Well, I think part of it is that most of the DCEU films that have come out have been adapting most of their stuff from Rebirth.
That's true.
And the New 52. It's kind of a mesh of those two.
Which is a big part of the reason why I don't like the DCEU is because I don't like either of those. Again, my bias is showing and I'm embarrassing myself.
There have been some wonderful one-offs that have come in between then.
But they're not part of those series. Like, for example, White Knight is fucking amazing. That's not part of Rebirth or New 52.
White Knight is literally one of my favorite Batman stories, period.
Agreed. It's fucking amazing. I would love to see an animated adaptation of White Knight.
Don't touch it live action.
No. Don't touch it live action. You have to attempt to emulate the artistic style because the drawings in it are super amazing. Also, wait about 10 years.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of the stuff is super poignant and relevant now, I wouldn't trust anybody who's working at Warner Brothers or DCEU to touch this franchise with a 10.5 foot pole, or with this particular series with a 10.5 foot pole. It's just like, leave it the fuck alone. In the future, maybe we could get like a Wonder Woman animated film, a Flashpoint Paradox, a Red Hood style animated film of the White Knight, and that would be super cool.
Yeah, or with this DCUniverse streaming program, there are a lot of things that are coming out with that.
Hopefully White Knight is on that, so at least people don't feel super just like cheated out of their money.
Yeah, if it comes out, I do actually want to buy an individual trade of it so that I'm not having to pull from the comics that I have all the time. I mean, it's great to have that, but I like to preserve those.
I like having like the little single issues. My only problem with issues is just like there's so many fucking advertisements. Like it's literally worse than watching television. It's super annoying.
Yeah,
but I usually buy like little single issues of some of the more indie stuff, and little indie series don't necessarily have that problem nearly as much. Like when I buy like the new Tank Girl, like World War Tank Girl or Tank Girl All Stars, or like if I buy the new Heavy Metal series, it's about Targon, I think is her name, but she's the chick at the end of the movie Heavy Metal, or the series that is in that weird font, I can't fucking read it. I think it's Issa, sort of like a post-apocalyptic talking animal, almost Jungle Book-esque kind of series. It's super good. Or like even a lot of the Jim Henson stuff that's being put into comics, like The Dark Crystal, Labyrinth. Storyteller is a fucking comic book series right now, and it's cool. There are a lot of like great expansions on the Storyteller TV show, which is brilliant. If you can, fucking watch all of Storyteller. Storyteller and Storyteller Greek Myths are both great seasons, but then there's also like novelizations and books, and now there's a comic series. A lot of those don't have that advertisement problem, which is good. But then when you get into Marvel and DC, when you buy the issues and not the trades, good God, it's like literally every other fucking page, and they're all themed to comics, so sometimes it takes you a minute to realize that you're not reading the next panel, you're reading a fucking advert.
It seems like they do that on purpose.
They totally do it on purpose. It makes me feel cheated and annoyed.
Yeah.
Getting back into Shazam, sorry.
So, similar to Aquaman, it's an origin story about a young boy who's like trying to come to his own, but like it works more for Shazam because Shazam is a kid.
He is a kid, I think this depends on the iteration. The Jeff Smith iteration, Captain Marvel, because legally speaking, Captain Marvel has many different forms, and I think it was like the first or the second iteration of Captain Marvel was actually recreated as Shazam for the DCEU, so there's a lot of like technical crossovers. And to be honest, maybe that's the reason they can't do the Jeff Smith version.
From my understanding, Captain Marvel, the story was similar, but like Captain Marvel, like the kid would say Shazam and become Captain Marvel.
And become Captain Marvel. So then they reiterated him to just be called Shazam instead of Captain Marvel.
Now, if I'm wrong about that, please correct me. Because I don't want to be wrong about that. But, it's kind of hard to find out, like, the origins of actual Captain Marvel. Not the Captain Marvel that, was later adopted with
not the female Captain Marvel that Brie Larson is going to play.
Right, but wasn't there also a male Captain Marvel in the Marvel in the Marvel universe as well?
Yes. The problem is that the DCEU had a character named Captain Marvel, and then Marvel Comics came around, and that created a big licensing issue over the term Marvel.
Okay.
Which is where a lot of this problem in terms of like the identity and which Captain Marvel are you talking about and the different character iterations and the change from Captain Marvel to Shazam all kind of comes into play. Is a lot of that confusion.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, I believe that in most iterations, Shazam is a kid who turns into a superhero. So like they're a full-grown human being but still a kid on the inside. In the Jeff Smith comics specifically, Captain Marvel is a spirit that is being hosted in a child's body. So when he becomes Shazam, he's kind of Captain Marvel, and he's kind of the little kid, Billy Barnum. And by the way, just for the record, the Shazam thing sounds kind of silly, especially because it sounds like the movie with Shaquille O'Neal.
Sorry. That is Sinbad, because everybody...
No, it's not Sinbad, it's Shaquille O'Neal. It is Shaquille O'Neal who plays Shazam.
Shazam was the movie that people thought it was. The movie is actually called Kazam.
Oh shit, is it? Because I am Kazam. Oh man.
I
seem.
No.
Yeah, oh.
No, the Sinbad one, the one that... the Mandela effect that people had about a movie called Shazam.
Sinbad was in Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, but like for some reason...
And Shazam
those movies came out at the same time, so people got them mixed up and thought
because all black people look the same, right?
Man, I remember having to tell somebody, and this was really frustrating.
No, here's the difference. Sinbad is actually funny.
I remember having to tell somebody, and this was really frustrating, that Ving Rhames was not in The Green Mile, and that was Michael Clark Duncan. And I was like, they don't even fucking look alike! They don't!
Right. But, okay, so, the Shazam, it's kind of like Wonder Woman-y, where, like, the Shazam is actually an acronym, and it's, like, Solomon for wisdom, Hercules for strength, Atlantis for stamina, Zeus for power, Achilles for courage, and Mercury for speed. Shazam. Which is kind of cheesy, but, like, with Shazam, Jeff Smith did a good job of this, and this movie's not doing a good job of this. Jeff Smith did a good job of, like, kind of doing, like, the cheesy elements that kids are into, but also being kind of serious. Like, I'm getting kind of, like, whiplash back to The Invention of Hugo Cabret versus the movie Hugo, where, like, I was a big fan of The Invention of Hugo Cabret for years before there was ever talk of, like, a movie Hugo coming out. I mean, I'm a huge Georges Méliès fan, and the reason why is because I read The Invention of Hugo Cabret, and I found out that it was a real fucking person. I watched all of his movies, and I thought he was fucking amazing. But when you read The Invention of Hugo Cabret, and then you watch the movie Hugo, a lot of the like really darker, grittier elements of the invention of Hugo Cabret, which they're not too hard for little kids. If you were ever a kid and you were reading children's books and young adult books and like teen novels, which is what I was doing all of the fucking time, a lot of it is dark, a lot of it is gritty, a lot of it is like really imaginative and like different societies. And then when they're adapted to movies, they get kind of whitewashed and whimsical to be more quote-unquote appropriate for children.
Yeah.
And Shazam, from my personal experience, it feels like that's what this is happening in this movie. Because, like I said, my canon is only the Jeff Smith one. But in that one, like, for example, he's not an orphan who gets adopted into a foster home. He is fucking homeless. He is Billy Bartum is a child who is squatting in an abandoned house that somehow gets electricity, who is being hit up every night by homeless bums who are like, I know you have money, open up, give me your shit. And every day he wakes up relieved to find out that he hasn't been robbed. Like, the shit gets pretty dark. There's a lot of stuff in, like, young adult teen sort of fiction that deals a lot with, like, the idea of being homeless, the idea of being separated from your family, especially like living in poverty and dealing with abuse at the hands of adults, whether you're related to them or not. Kids can handle dark ass shit. The thing with this trailer for Shazam is I totally don't have a problem with the fact that they're going with more of the idea of like, he's a kid who can become a superhero. I think that's a fantastic idea. But if you can't actually nail down what kids are like, especially like teens, tweens, teens, and you can't really like authentically engage with like what teenagers are like, none of that fucking works.
Well,
none of it works.
I think the big problem is like a lot of people making these movies still think that kids grow up like they did in the 80s. And
or
so
the
like
50s.
Yeah, and I blame it partly on entertainment because, like, you know, you have the jocks and the nerdy kids, and the jocks beat up the nerdy kids, and, like,
that
that's
doesn't
your
exist
understanding.
anymore.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, if anybody's seen the 21 Jump Street remake, like, Channing Tatum thinks he's gonna be all cool going into high school because, like, he's kind of jockey, he's like fit and all that kind of stuff.
He's
and then
Channing Tatum.
Yeah, and then he finds out that Jonah Hill, who's the nerdy kid, is actually the more popular kid because, you know, he tried to pick on like gay people and all this kind of stuff, and he found out that like Jonah Hill, who's just like kind of cool, kind of schlubby, you know, he's the one that everybody wants to hang out with. So he had to double down and try to like adapt the hipster shit so that he could be popular.
Exactly. Like, a lot of the stuff that we see in the trailer, which it is a trailer, but it's going to be like, what, the 7th DCEU film that comes out? Yeah, like, we have enough shit to prejudge this.
Yeah.
It seriously feels like you just don't understand what kids and teens deal with at any given time. Especially not foster kids. Like, this has, like, the Gotham problem. Like, if you watch the show Gotham, there's a point where, like, so, Catwoman, Selena Kyle, who will in the future become Catwoman, wears, like, designer clothes, and she's, like, super clean and cute and attractive. She's homeless. And, like, she's legitimately homeless, like, out living on the streets begging for food homeless.
She's the nicest looking homeless person you'll ever see.
But then you go to her hideout where there are all the homeless kids her age, and they all have, like, a youth rec center with, like, a skateboard ramp, and I'm like, dude, you homeless kids in Gotham live better than I do, and I work full-time and have, like, income. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's so funny because, like, okay, I know you're gonna make fun of me for liking this movie, but when I was little, there was a movie that I like called Free Willy. At the beginning of Free Willy, the main character was homeless, and he was hanging out with his friends, and yeah, they were, like, skating and stuff like that, but they snuck into that place, and they were eating out of the trash can.
You know, like, homeless people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, like, not everything has to be, like, true to life and super accurate and realistic, but, like, he is a super cute, attractive, not attractive in a sexual way, just, like, he's a pretty boy, super white kid in a foster home system who's being adopted by, like, rich parents, and it's just, like, do you even foster care? Like,
I will say this seems to be another case where a person of color gets turned white because like that kid kind of looked mixed.
I couldn't tell, but like,
but I don't know. I don't know for a fact, but like he looked mixed. He looked somewhat Latino.
Okay, that might be true, but I couldn't tell from the trailer. But, you know, whatever. And then you have, like, his adoptive brother who's crippled. And, like, the thing I couldn't believe was at school, all of these kids are physically beating up a crippled kid.
Yeah.
Like a kid with a cane. And it's like, who the fuck kicks little Tim?
Yeah. People don't do that. Unless he's, like, a dick. Yeah, people wouldn't do that.
I think you can get away with really being a dick when you're a kid. This isn't a great frame of reference for me to pull from. But in Donald Glover's stand-up Weirdo, he brings up the fact that there's a kid. There are these two kids and they're playing basketball and they're like fighting over the ball and one of them yanks the ball from the other kid and he says, "That's why your mom's in a fucking wheelchair." Like, you can get away with being like a serious dick. But here's the thing. The kid he was playing basketball with wasn't in a wheelchair.
Right.
There's a huge difference. He wasn't playing with that kid's mom. Like, they don't make that model of human being anymore who sees a kid with a crutch and it's just like, "Oh, fuck you, kid. How dare you be crippled? I'm gonna kick you in the stomach while you're down."
Yeah, so anyways, like, he's taken the railway. I'm guessing it's New York because nothing fucking ever happens outside of New York, it seems like, with superheroes.
At least in the one I read, there
it's
is
DC,
a subway.
so it's going to be like some made-up city.
Right, but it's like totally New York because like Midtown is New York and Metropolis is well, Gotham
they're
is
New York.
Chicago.
They're all New York.
No. The DCEU has such a dumb problem with their cities. Where like Gotham is Chicago because Chris Nolan did it that way. Except for he really, really made it Chicago with like the Chicago skyline and shit. But like Gotham has always been the word for New York since like the 1880s. Gotham means New York. Gotham literally is a name for New York. It's like if Batman lived in the Big Apple and he made it Chicago. What fucking sense does that make?
I mean, Gotham, you know, according to the Batman comics, Gotham is a fictional place. Even though, like, yes, I know, but...
But then, like, Metropolis is also Chicago, but then, like, Metropolis and Gotham are sister cities, so technically Gotham is in New York, and Metropolis is in New Jersey? What? And then Midtown is literally just New York. It's literally just in New York because there's a subway system. What the fuck?
Anyway, so yeah, he's
fucking New York.
He's taking public transportation and he sees this weird homeless guy.
It's supposed to be a subway, but it's like a magical subway, kind of like the Magic School Bus.
I was gonna say,
but in the
like
trailer, it's just more like Harry Potter. Yeah. But then in the trailer, it's just the train, and there are other people on the train with him.
Yeah, I think he's just like connected, like somebody's just trying to communicate with him through magic, and like so.
And then like he gets taken to Batman's Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah,
that's
Superman's
all it is.
Fortress of Solitude.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Batman. Oh. Batman does not have a Fortress of Solitude.
No, he has the Batcave, which is essentially his Fortress of Solitude. But yeah,
Negative. The Fortress of Solitude and the Batcave are very different.
They're not very different. They're the place where the superhero goes to brood and be alone and look at the memorabilia of all of their past victories. Like, it's the same fucking thing, but one of them's black and one of them's made of ice.
One's to look at the past of a planet and one's... You're right, but I'm just fighting with you. Anyways...
He goes to Superman's Fortress of Solitude.
No, he
And
goes
Dumbledore's there.
He goes and sees, like, yeah, pretty much. And, he's like, oh, you gotta say the ancient word. And then he's like, what, Shazam? And then, like, he turns into this guy, and then, it turns into
But it's
a more
weird because he's like, hey, say the magic word Shazam. And he's like, okay, Shazam. So, like, why doesn't it happen when Dumbledore says Shazam?
There's probably some, like...
Well, in the Jeff Smith one, he doesn't say the word Shazam. He says the whole thing of, like, hey, this is the magic word. It's a Solomon for wisdom, Hercules for strength, Achilles for courage. No, I skipped something.
It's possible that they might have shortened it for the trailer, and they actually do that.
But he says the word Shazam, so, like, why doesn't...
Well, it's possible that they might have done that for the trailer, because, sometimes they actually, like, record scenes for trailers, and then, like...
Oh, and then it doesn't happen in the movie.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, let's hope that happens. But if that doesn't happen...
But he becomes Shazam.
Yeah.
And he's, like, a good-looking guy in, like, a really bad Party City Superman costume.
And it's, like, glowing for whatever reason.
No, the glowing part is fine. The problem is, like, it's very clearly one of those Party City superhero costumes with foam muscles where, like, you can tell that the actor is not built that way at all, and that it's literally just, like, foam bodysuits.
Yeah, which... I can understand the idea of that because, like, oh, the kid isn't that strong, but, like...
But he doesn't have the kid's head. He's an adult body.
Right,
like,
yeah, it's weird. And then it has, like, a hood on it, which I don't know. Is that, like, part of Shazam's, like, outfit?
I mean, he has a cape. Maybe the cape has a hood, but, like... not really. It's not like a hood. It's, like, a cape and a little capelet.
Yeah, but, like, in this movie, it's literally a fucking hood.
I mean, like, the design of the costume doesn't bother me necessarily, and I think
in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that the design on, much like Wonder Woman, the design on paper isn't a bad design. It's just, you gave the costumers and the stylist no time to work on it, and you thought you could Green Lantern it and just... like, use CGI effects to make it look a little nicer, and it doesn't fucking work.
And here's the thing. I like DC Comics more than I like Marvel Comics. I need to say this again and again and again. I want the DC movies to be better, but they don't look it.
Well, also, before
like
the
costumes
DCEU
in the
came
Marvel
out...
universe are way better.
Like, Black Panther's costume is fucking amazing.
Black Panther's costume is amazing.
Iron Man's costume is fucking amazing. That's one...
Yeah,
that's one where, like, if you look at Iron Man, like, yes, there are, like, super advanced, very serious cosplayers who can put, like, an insane amount of time and money and energy and come out with something that's, like, a functional Iron Man costume. Mm-hmm. But they never look better than Iron Man, which is a big difference because, like, yeah, it's not functional, but it always looks incredible.
And then you have
Captain
my favorite.
America.
Captain America is my favorite costume out of all of them.
Better than the DCEU.
Better than the fucking comics, damn near.
No. That's what I'm saying. Far better than the DCEU did, because the DCEU, again, trying to emulate Marvel, they try to, like, say, like, oh, well, Superman's red underwear is silly, we're not gonna have that. Oh, Wonder Woman's, like, patriotic outfit, we can't have that anymore because we wrote all of her American patriotism out of her backstory for some goddamn fucking reason.
She's fucking British now.
Yeah, she lives in France. She's never been to America. She's never fought for America. What the flying fuckballs? Why is she not... Because the reason why it bugs me is because Wonder Woman was the initial symbol for American patriotism. Superman was an alien who fought for America... And it was like an allegory, but it wasn't super explicit about it. Wonder Woman was super explicit about it. She was Captain America before there ever was a Captain America.
Yeah, she punched Hitler first.
Exactly. She wore the flag first. You got rid of all of her fucking American patriotism symbolism because she's never fucking been to America as far as we've got.
Well, and they didn't want to get slammed with plagiarism for their movie being too similar to Captain America,
but
the first Avenger.
But before the Superman revamp, before the Aquaman revamp, before the Wonder Woman revamp, there were the revamps for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Captain America was the first super big one where when the Captain America movie was announced, people were like, well, the Captain American suit in the comic barely works in the comic. Like, it's so silly and ridiculous. How are you going to do it? And then came up with a brilliant fucking design that was super faithful to the source material and to the character and worked on screen and could be taken seriously. And that is a super fine tightrope to walk on. Like, finer than the tightrope between the whore-virgin dichotomy. Like, super fucking thin. How do you do that? And they did it. And Marvel Cinematic Universe did it again and again. Thor had the exact same thing. Thor's stupid fucking headpiece. What are you gonna do? They did the headpiece correctly.
They did it in Thor Ragnarok. They paid homage to that in Thor Ragnarok, and it looked great.
It looked amazing. And that's what happens when you give enough time and planning and pre-production and money and resources to the actual artists who make movies fucking work instead of paying for the rights for a billion fucking things. This is what happens when you come up with a game plan and you stick to it and you make that shit work. There's a reason why Coon and Friends are following Marvel and not DC. There's a good fucking reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've been replaying the South games. But it's true! They're not emulating the DCEU. They're not emulating Star Wars. They're emulating Marvel. And Marvel, more importantly than anything else, can get away with being disingenuous to its source material and still keeping fans because at least they're making good quality content.
Yeah, I mean, the best example, Thanos. Not very similar to the comics.
True. I mean, like, the big thing is the snap is, like, almost identical to the comics. But in most other respects, Thanos is not similar at all.
Yeah, because they had to flesh him out more because, you can't have a one-dimensional villain. And that made the film really compelling. I was not looking forward to Thanos.
Exactly.
You can hear my podcast when I talk about all this kind of stuff. And, we talked about the MCU. And I was pissed off at the second Avengers movie. I thought it was bullshit. And I was really angry. And for some reason, they figured out how to turn it around and make it amazing.
Work. Exactly. I wouldn't say amazing.
I think Thanos.
I don't think Thanos is amazing.
Is the best
like, he's
villain.
Serviceable, which is far better than what I expected because they built him up for so goddamn. I thought it was going to be like Daenerys with her dragons, where they built it up for so goddamn long, no matter what you did, there wouldn't be a payoff that would make it all worth it. And they did. They made Thanos an understandable, relatable, serviceable character. I don't think he's the best Marvel villain, but
yeah,
he's serviceable, and that's better than DCEU.
Killmonger a little bit more, but
Killmonger is way fucking better. But the fact that you can make me like Thanos as a villain at all after, and again, like I keep saying that I don't have a problem prejudging the DCEU films because we've had film after film after film after film made by the same content creators to prejudge a film on. But with Marvel, I had all of these movies to prejudge Thanos on, and I did, and hard and heavy, and I was like, Thanos is fucking bullshit, Thanos is super stupid, I don't give a shit about Thanos. When you finally get to Infinity War, where Thanos is gonna be a character, it's gonna be fucking dumb and fucking stupid, and I'm not gonna give a shit. And Infinity War is the only actual Avengers movie. I don't mean one of the origin films or the spin-offs, I mean out of Avengers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Infinity Wars is the only one I like. There's only one I think is a good movie.
There's only 3 Avengers movie.
Captain
Civil War.
Captain America movie. Sorry,
it's technically an Avengers movie, but like,
I keep thinking that that's Avengers 3, but it's Captain America 3.
It technically is.
Okay, but out of the 3 movies, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Avengers Infinity Wars, the only one I like and I think is a good movie is Infinity War, and it's mostly because of Thanos. And I had about a decade of marinating on this character and thinking about this character and hating on this character to give me all sorts of biases against this character, and I still liked it.
And getting back to DC, one of the things that's really frustrated me
about the DCEU is they've managed to fuck up some of the greatest villains ever written. They fucked
Villains
up the
and
Joker.
heroes.
They fucked up Lex Luthor. They fucked up Ares.
I don't know that Ares is one of the greatest DCEU villains, but
Okay,
they're definitely gonna fuck up Cheetah. I'm sorry.
Oh, fucking
No.
Kristen Wiig? What the fuck? Have you seen the behind the scenes footage of her? Oh, here's behind the scenes footage. Oh my god, she's on a wire. She's jumping.
So with Kristen Wiig, my thing isn't that like, oh, there's a problem with Kristen Wiig. Kristen Wiig is a very gifted comedian. She's a very gifted creative force behind things like Bridesmaids. She had a lot to do with how good that movie was. Bridesmaids is not my taste, but I can see objectively it is a very great comedy. I don't really have a problem with it. It's just not necessarily for me. She's behind a lot of the better elements of SNL. There's nothing wrong with her as a comedian or putting her in your movie. And like even Ghostbusters is not really anything to do with her. She wasn't necessarily miscast being put in that movie. She wasn't necessarily any part of like the problems of that movie. The problem with that movie was you had a producer and a writer-director who had literally negative zero interest in making a fucking Ghostbusters movie. And you had them make a Ghostbusters movie. That was the driving problem. The problem with putting Kristen Wiig in the position of being Cheetah is she's one of the very few comedians who has like no skill at drama. The worst part, and I don't mean like, oh, this shows like how great the rest of the movie was. No, this was genuinely terrible idea and should have not happened. The worst part of Mother was Kristen Wiig being in it at all. And it's not that the character was badly written. Kristen Stewart was Kristen Wiig was miscast. Kristen Stewart would have been a better fit for that movie than Kristen Wiig. She was miscast and she was distracting, and everything that she was in Mother was awful and ragged, and it was a terrible idea. So her playing Cheetah is absolutely a terrible idea. But it feeds into a lot of the bigger problems with Wonder Woman, the original film, and then also this is like just breaking, like as we've been recording. There have been like articles, videos about, and like actual footage from some of the information for the new Wonder Woman released at San Diego Comic-Con while we've been recording. So, I mean, like, I didn't have a whole lot to say about Shazam other than just the fact that it didn't look very good and it doesn't look like a good movie, and I think that they made a lot of poor decisions just like every other DCEU film. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. You really needed to work more on like making kids the center of your movie, and also it was just a terrible idea to make privileged white kids movie with a Kendrick Lamar song as your theme song. Again, just like ripping off of Black Panther. That was just a bad idea. Why did you put a censored version of Humble as your theme song?
I will say it's really interesting that the Shazam movie is the only movie in the trailer that doesn't have a clear villain.
Yeah, it's mostly about the hero, which is actually kind of refreshing a little bit, except for the fact that the hero is gonna suck. I did have one more thing, though. The only other thing I had was, maybe this is accurate to the comics, or like the canon of the comics, or another series of the comics, but I do think that it's weird that his adoptive brother is a brother? Because at least in the version I had read, he had a biological sister that he had been separated from. And he kind of passes on a little bit of his power to her. Her name's Mary, and she kind of like is like a girl-kid version of Shazam. She's not like him, where she becomes like this full-fledged, sexy human adult. She's just like a little kid who has like some powers, and there's a little bit of her like playing with her powers, and like him still needing to protect her. But they have like a nice dynamic in that they've been separated for a while, and their reunion is really awkward. And like they love each other, but it's not like super smooth or perfect. Both of those things I think would have been really interesting to go into. And there also seems to be like a sincere lack of, like, nihilism missing. A lot of this stuff was just meant, like, kids are funny, and, like, he comes out of the convenience store and he's like, hey, I'm a superhero, which is the best moment of the trailer. It's the only good moment. But, like, in the comics, I remember there was, like, this really intriguing moment where, Billy Bartham goes up to... He sort of stumbles upon, a scene that's happening with, like, a news anchor, and she's about to record a news segment, and he's always had a crush on her from watching her on the news. He's like, you're so cute and sexy, oh my god, you're the adult I have a crush on, like every really awkward 80s movie that you never want to watch again. And she looks at him, and she's like, hi, little boy, and she's like, oh my god, she's talking to me, and she says, you're standing on my microphone wire. Beat it, you little brat. Fuck off. And she's, like, really mean and rude and awful to him. And it's just, like, a little moment in, like, this 4-issues run. But it kind of does a good job of, like, sort of, like, putting in a bottle the emotion and the tone of the series. And I didn't see anything resembling that in the trailer.
Well, no, I think a lot of that is because DC has gotten sort of this reputation of being too dark, and
which isn't true, but yes,
it seems like they are going way too much in the other direction, which I think's also going to hurt them in the long run.
I agree. This is feeding into this bigger thing of, like, the movies have to be more whimsical than the books because Hollywood executives don't take children or teenagers or their emotions or their problems seriously. We see this again and again and again. We see this in Spiderwick Chronicles, we see this in City of Ember, we see this in A Wrinkle in Time, we see this in Hugo, we see this in 13 Reasons Why. There is, like, this real thing in Hollywood of, like, having to, like, I don't mean this in a racial sense, but, like, whitewash and candy coat and, like, whimsical everything that's intended to anyone below the age of 18. And it's bullshit. Children can handle harder stuff than that because they go through harder stuff than that. You need to treat, like, Won't You Be My Neighbor, Mr. Rogers, if he taught us anything, it's that you need to take the emotion and the experience of children seriously. You can't just pander to them and expect them to eat up just fucking anything and give you money for it. Fuck you.
I mean, like, we've made our complaints about where Star Wars has gone, but, like,
oh, true.
Quite frankly, I think that the DCEU is even worse than the Star Wars franchise.
Oh, far worse.
Yeah.
I mean, as terrible as The Last Jedi was, and as, like, god-awful, just a fucking betrayal of everything you ever knew and loved that, about Star Wars, that the Solo origin film that nobody watched, thank God, was... I think I would still rather watch either of those movies over literally any singular DCEU film.
I think the only one that I might go back to is Justice League, just because there's just something that's so hilariously bad about that movie.
I don't think it's bad enough to fit in there. There were a couple moments I remember being funny, but not enough to warrant sitting through that entire fucking movie again.
But that being said, this franchise is seriously going in a direction that I don't know why they are trying to rush. I mean, I get that they see the green.
But they haven't seen the green is the big thing. They've had one singular financially successful film out of all of one.
They've had one that was financially and critically successful. They've had two financially successful.
What movie was financially successful?
Suicide Squad was actually financially successful.
Overseas.
Okay.
Overseas only.
And we saw a fucking...
We saw it twice.
We saw an 8-year-old fall asleep during the fucking
true.
movie.
In America,
you saw it twice. I saw it once.
That's true. No. Suicide Squad only was financially successful overseas. Wonder Woman was the only American financially successful film out of 5 live-action films and 2 animated films. And all of their pre-production bullshit that they've been going through. They are not a financially successful franchise. They're chasing the green. They haven't seen any fucking profit. The fact that they only have one movie that is financially successful and their last film wasn't even profitable. Actually, they've had multiple movies now that are not even financially profitable. They're not doing well financially in terms of merchandise. They're not doing financially well in terms of DVD, Blu-ray sales. They're not doing financially successful in terms of their rentals. Except for Suicide Squad, they're not doing well overseas.
Yeah, I mean...
And you cannot rely on the foreign market for
Wonder Woman,
a franchise that size.
Wonder Woman is the only film of theirs that, is a modicum of success.
And it's funny that, like, this is purely anecdotal. I'm not saying this is, like, a sweeping indictment of the status of this movie. But I do think it's funny that, like, Wonder Woman was so, like, quote-unquote, financially and critically successful. There is Wonder Woman, just like Ghostbusters, just like Star Wars, kind of went through this, article after article after article after people on Facebook, after people on Instagram, Twitter, saying, like, the only people who hate this movie are men, while many, many, many women stood off to the side and said, hey, I'm a woman, and because I'm a woman fan, I fucking hate this. It's just, like, complete erasure and ignorance of that.
Though it seems that's so in the minority. Like,
it's not in the minority. Okay, again, anecdotal.
Like, Wonder Woman is, like, by far the most defended not even defended. People unanimously, praise this movie. I don't get it.
That has not been my experience. My anecdotal, personal, talking to people one-on-one experience has been most women don't like it, and most people who like the rest of the DCEU defend it the way that they defend the rest of the DCEU. But that being said...
you're just a Marvel shill because you like the Marvel movies.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. Considering that is the most financially and critical successful of the movies, I don't see almost anybody sporting merch or buttons or t-shirts, patches, posters, like their background on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or cosplaying is the thing I've seen the most of because it's the best designed Wonder Woman outfit we've had in a long time, even though the actual outfit that was put in the movie was garbage. And as was all of the Amazons, all of their costumes, like the way they physically came to be in the movies were garbage. That being said, I don't see a lot of people like actually spending money to show support for the movie, if that makes sense. I have some Wonder Woman shit. I have some Wonder Woman comics and merch, and I'm very specific in that it's nothing to do with the Gal Gadot version or the DCEU version or any of the comic iterations that have come out since then. I only support Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, the 1940s Wonder Woman, the 1980s and 1970s Wonder Woman. The shit that came out like just before Rebirth in the DCEU, the Justice League TV show version, the animated movie version. Like, I have some buttons and patches, and I've gotten gifts for people, and I've done designs, and I've done renderings. And I'm super, super specific to make sure that it has nothing to do with the Zack Snyder Wonder Woman. And part of it is because, like, I don't see anybody who supports that shit. Like, when you go into Hot Topic, they have some of the merch, but they're always stocked on the merch for, like, the new Wonder Woman, because, like, nobody buys that shit. Because
I've seen some people with the Wonder Woman stuff. I
said, it was anecdotal.
Yeah, that's very anecdotal because I've seen women that have like the Wonder Woman stuff in their office and stuff like that.
But is it the new one
yes,
or is it the original?
The new one. Okay, it's the new one. With
I've seen people support have the
it's
logo. It's
usually like poppy stuff, so like it's not specifically that. And I've heard people say, "Oh, did you see the new Wonder Woman movie? It was great."
No, that's what I'm saying though. Is it specifically the new one? Because like I've seen more people.
It is specifically the new one.
I've seen more people have like T-shirts and hood and like beanies and buttons that are the logo for the 1970s live action Linda Carter TV show logo for Wonder Woman more than I've seen for the DCEU.
I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
You can't do that. It's like an anecdotal.
No, but I'm saying like yes, I have my own opinions. you have your own opinions about the movie. I will say that based on the people I've talked to and the critical response to the movie, most people like this movie. Even people who are against like social justice, like ideologies.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is that after buying their movie tickets, they're not continuing to support the franchise.
Well, I mean,
they're not like going out and buying the new Wonder Woman comics. They're not going out and buying merch. They're not going out and buying the movie
doing
on
that
Blu-ray
with comics
DVD.
in general.
I agree.
Marvel,
I agree.
Marvel
I agree. But what I'm saying is that Wonder Woman, their most critically and financially successful element of their new franchise, is not changing that the way that they hoped it would. And you can tell that because very specifically, as soon as they came out with a movie that starred a female heroine, that was mostly about her, that like featured her mostly in the promos, that did financially well, that did critically well, that most people said, hey, it's great to have a female superhero, they took the Gotham City Sirens movie that was being written, directed, and produced by women, that was mostly being helmed by Margot Robbie because she read the comics and was super inspired by the actual comics, to make an ensemble female film, and they scrapped that shit to make a Harley Joker movie that nobody fucking wanted, that everybody hated that element from Suicide Squad. No one wanted to see more Jared Leto Joker. Nobody wanted to see a Harley Joker movie. People are past that. We want to see fucking Harley and Ivy. We're done with that. The fact is that after their quote-unquote financially critically successful Wonder Woman movie, they scrapped their female ensemble movie to make that piece of shit. What does that tell you business-wise?
I mean, it tells me that, like, really, like... I mean, honestly, the way that I see it is they have taken the success of Wonder Woman to an extreme. Because, like, I mean... Like, look at Wonder Woman 1984. This is the new Wonder Woman that's coming out with Cheetah and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's going to be a whole other thing to get into. What I'm saying is, like, if I'm a business executive, and I don't read comics, and I don't know the origin of shit, and I don't give a shit about the fans or the continuity or the timeline, what I care about is beating Marvel at their game and putting out as many movies as possible. And when I see the box office returns, and I see how well Batman, Man of Steel did, and I see that did pretty okay enough to greenlight a franchise, and I see how terrible the drop-off was for Batman v Superman, a 75% film-going drop-off between opening weekend Friday night and Sunday night. And then I see how bad Suicide Squad did in America. It did well overseas, but it did not do well in America, and I see how the only movie that succeeded financially in America and overseas is the Wonder Woman movie, and most of that is because it starred a woman. Almost all of it had to do specifically because we took a movie that starred a woman, and we made that fucking happen. Why would I not take the female ensemble film and put that as the priority? Take that one and be like, this is going to be the next thing we put out after Justice League.
Yeah,
this is going to be like the big front runner. We need to give money to Margot Robbie and the woman who ended up working on Bumblebee, and we need to like start casting for this stuff, and we need to put everything else on the back burner.
I understand what you're saying.
Why would you do that?
I understand what you're saying. Part of me is like, they're looking at the numbers, and quite frankly, the most successful DC, not DCEU, but the most successful DC movie for a very long time is The Dark Knight Rises.
Which is why they're making 4 fucking Joker movies, even though everyone hates Jared Leto's Joker.
I would say that what you need to do is not hire newbies, hire seasoned veterans.
What, like David Fincher?
Yeah, shit like that. I would say David Fincher.
That was a trick question.
No, I would say, people like that. Hire veterans. Don't hire people like... I mean, quite frankly, Ava DuVernay is not a fucking veteran. Why is she taking over the new fucking gods? What the fuck is that shit?
Well, especially after we saw how badly Wrinkle in Time tanked.
Wrinkle in Time was... Out of all the films that I have seen in 2018, I would say Wrinkle in Time is the worst film that I've seen in this entire year so far.
Outside of franchise films, yes.
No, I I would say even including franchise films, it was the worst film I saw all year.
I was trying to be generous. Can I be generous for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. At the very least, if we're talking about standalone films outside of a franchise that aren't leaning on the support of like previous years or a lot of money or a lot of infrastructure to support it, yeah, Wrinkle in Time is the worst thing I've seen in all of 2018 by a lot. Like, by a lot.
Yeah.
And to the point where, like, we keep talking about the 8-year-old that we saw fall asleep during Suicide Squad. No. That's a single child. I looked around multiple times throughout Wrinkle in Time, and I saw a sea of bored and miserable children. There was one kid in the entire movie theater who was genuinely touched by it, and I don't want to take that away from them. But there was like a plethora of children who were bored and sad and upset. The way that I was bored and sad and upset when I spent my hard-earned money to go see fucking Spiderwick Chronicles because it was an adaptation of a book that I cared a lot about.
Yeah, but
Or when I went out and I spent my hard-earned money to go watch the Wonder Woman movie, which was based on a comic book series that I cared a lot about.
And that's the thing I wanted to get into with the DCpointments. Because, like, DC is what I grew up on. I didn't grow up on Marvel, and I'm kind of pissed that I'm more excited about Marvel films than I am about DC movies.
Some Marvel films.
Some Marvel films.
I'm not going to see Ant-Man or Ant-Man and Wasp.
I'll watch it.
You can watch it, but I'm saying on purpose. I'm not going to see every fucking Marvel movie.
But that being said, like, you know, there's a personal frustration with watching these movies and seeing the quality that I'm getting with each and every movie that comes out. Now, granted, the animated movies have been really good to a certain point. They're starting to come back because I did hear that Batman Ninja was really awesome. And I am
we do
excited
kind of have to
about...
get into the animated stuff because I like Killing Joke actually pretty okay. You fucking hated Killing Joke. We both like Batman and Harley, even though I will concede that
the animation quality was a step down.
The animation quality was a step down. The erasure of the like actual status of Harley and Ivy was super bullshit from a progressive standpoint. And third of all, even though it didn't bother me personally, I do concede there was way too much sexual content with Harley Quinn. I still thought it was a decent movie. Then there was Batman by Gaslight. No,
the animation was good.
The animation was good. The animation was good. It was far better than Killing Joke, for sure.
Good God.
There was no part of that concept that was ever going to work.
Yeah, but that's a lot of that is based on like its source material,
which was also really bad. But that does come down to Warner Brothers greenlighting the time and money and resources to adapt that over literally anything else they could have adapted that would have been along the vein of Batman Year One, Under the
They
Red
have
Hood.
adapted Batman Year One.
That's
okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm saying there's a sense of a legacy lost even among their animated films. When Lego Batman is the best representation of Batman, live action and animated, that we've gotten in like the past 6 years, that is disturbing and sad. Because that's not even an accurate Batman, that's just funny. And I don't mean that to put down Lego Batman. I love Lego Batman, and a big part of the reason why Lego Batman is super good is because it does mock and parody and make fun of every era of Batman, all the way from like its origins to modern day. And it can like, including The Dark Knight, which so many people deem as untouchable and like uncriticizable, which is bullshit. It totally is. But, like, the fact that they were able to make fun of and parody Batman throughout its history isn't the same as actually doing right by its history and its legacy. The way that something like the White Knight comic book series did.
Yeah. And the whole thing with, like, DCUniverse as a streaming service, like, if it weren't for the fact that, from my understanding, they actually have comics on there, I don't think it would sell me that much, especially with the Titans show. But like, you know, you got a Harley Quinn animated show, which kind of sounds interesting. Well, I'm actually not sure. It might be live action. Which you got Swamp Thing, which I'd like to see a good adaptation of that at some point because, you know, especially if you adapt some of the stuff that Alan Moore did with Swamp Thing, that could be really cool. I highly doubt that because it seems that...
everyone's afraid to get to Alan Moore's level.
Everybody's afraid to get to Alan Moore's level, but also everybody's afraid to, you know, tackle anything outside of current iterations of things.
True.
Yeah, it's like we have the New 52 in Rebirth.
And that's all they will touch, even though that's all garbage.
There's some interesting aspects of it.
But even the interesting aspects aren't done well.
I would say that Flash is probably the most interesting out of that.
True.
But like,
and you know what's really sad about that? You know why the Flash is the most beloved and the most well done in the comics right now?
Why?
This is gonna make you cry. Not right now, but when you're up alone by yourself in bed, it's gonna make you cry. But it's true. It's because of the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory is the only reason why any of the DCEU, but specifically Flash, is being treated with even a modicum of respect.
No! I fucking hate the Big Bang Theory.
I do too. The Big Bang Theory is a fucking disgrace to nerds everywhere. It's fucking bullshit. But that's the reason.
Alright, so getting back to these DC films and all that kind of stuff, like, so I'm underwhelmed, to say the least. I'm underwhelmed by Titans the most, just because, like...
What the fuck are you even thinking?
What the fuck? I mean, like, dude, we you know, with streaming TV shows, we have Daredevil as a primary inspiration that things should live up to.
Dude, you know what would actually be the best series for the DCEU to do, like, Netflix MCU TV show style program to?
What?
Like, you know, the way, like, there's the Daredevil, there's Jessica Jones, like, these, like, individual solo we're following a single character kind of thing.
Yeah.
Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Live action wise, we do not have a real Selena Kyle. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is good. She's not Selena Kyle. We have Gotham. We have Catwoman and Selena Kyle, and neither of them are really accurate. We have Anne Hathaway, who is just the really boring protagonist who doesn't really do anything. It's really sad that Gal Gadot's quote-unquote Wonder Woman is the most accurate Selena Kyle Catwoman character that we have in live action. That is wrong on so many levels.
Well, she was Catwoman in Batman v
Superman, yeah. But that's sad. That's not correct, and that needs to be rectified. If you did like a Netflix-style solo superhero animated show, I would say you should either do Selena Kyle / Catwoman, and that would be great because you could do like a really good interpretation of the Riddler, because the Riddler is just like a frat douchebag in like most of the Catwoman comics. Like, he's a really great antagonist to work off of that would really resonate with a lot of people nowadays because he really fits a lot of the archetypes of toxic masculinity and all that shit. Or, and I know you're gonna hate this, but it wouldn't be anything like the Uma Thurman version. A great Poison Ivy series would be awesome, especially because you could bring Harley Quinn in as sort of like a cameo / recurring character. Or if you did like a Katie Kane Batwoman series, that would be fucking
From what I heard, the CW is making a Batwoman show.
But that's CW, and that shit's gonna be like watered down and like PG-13, and like I'm talking about like Netflix hardcore balls to the wall kind of shit.
I mean, like, DCUniverse apparently thinks that saying "fuck Batman" is like hardcore enough.
Right.
To
I
not
mean,
be
that's true.
PG-13.
That's true. I'm talking about my fantasy land where the DCEU hasn't already shat and pissed all over all of my hopes and dreams for the DC and live action. So, like,
I mean,
what am I talking about?
I will say that I'm really looking forward to. I know that some people have been skeptical of Damon Lindelof after his dealings with Lost and more notoriously Alien. Prometheus. But you know, I think he did a really good job with The Leftovers, and I'm actually really excited to see the HBO adaptation / reinterpretation / sequel of Watchmen. So like
Me too, just because like it's really funny my relationship with Zack Snyder's Watchmen, because when it came out, I was like a super staunch like defender of it, and since then I was like in the years and years and years I've watched and rewatched and reread. I still don't dislike the Watchmen movie. I still think that besides 300, that's the best Zack Snyder thing he's ever done. But I really think that we deserve
Dawn
better.
of the Dead is really good.
I haven't seen Dawn of the Dead. But I still think that we deserve better, and I think we could do better, and that a TV show on HBO is probably the correct format. Literally, the only thing that I think of that could be better would be a series on Hulu. My problems with season 2.
Here's the thing. I haven't seen
aside.
Runaways, and the Runaways is like an adaptation of comic book franchise on Hulu. So I don't know how that is.
Same. I haven't seen the Runaways, but all of my myriad of problems with season 2 aside, The Handmaid's Tale season 1 and season 2 have proved that Hulu can go balls to the wall and kind of do whatever they want.
I mean,
more so than a lot of other platforms.
I mean, honestly, if you want to talk about a network that goes balls to the wall and is even more hardcore than HBO, motherfucking Stars. That's what I would say.
Yeah, but nobody has access to Stars.
American Gods.
No one has access to
American
Stars.
Gods. Spartacus.
No one has access to Stars. Unless they pay a buttload of money for cable or are willing to be pirates.
Well, Stars is actually offering their own streaming program, which I know...
Is it out yet?
Yeah, it's out.
Okay,
so, like...
But who owns it and who actually has it? Like, fucking no one.
Right, but, like, you know, I would say Stars, because, like, you know, Stars...
You would say Stars. I would say from a marketing perspective, no, that would never work.
Stars is a little bit edgier than HBO.
It's edgier, but all their shit feels the same.
No, it doesn't.
Tonally, it's all the fucking same.
What, you're saying Spartacus and American Gods feel the fucking same?
No, American Gods does feel a lot better than Spartacus.
And American Gods is pretty fucking edgy.
No, American Gods is very good. That's totally true. I do agree, but... If I was a producer or if I was in charge of marketing and distribution, I would never in a million years pick Stars for the platform on which to scream a comic book adaptation. I would never do that. Because
Spartacus was
too
a
many
great
people
success.
Don't do that. Yeah, when it was on television and people had cable.
Well, a lot of people watch it on fucking Netflix and...
They watched it on Netflix.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is watching American Gods? As good as it is, who the fuck is actually watching it? Nobody.
That isn't bootlegging it.
That isn't bootlegging and pirating it, which is not what producers and marketing directors want. Nobody. Because
there are too many streaming
nobody has
services.
Cable.
And now that we have like DCUniverse coming into the game, you know, that's going to take people away. And then you got Disney coming with their own streaming service.
Exactly.
And apparently the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie is going to be on their streaming service and not in the theaters, which a lot of people are saying that's a huge thing, and that
I don't think that's a huge thing because all the new Star Wars shit sucks.
Well, yeah, but that's huge for Star Wars to be that low. To like, hey, we're going to release.
They just came out with a movie that was a theatrical release that did not make a profit.
Yeah, that's true.
I have no problem with their taking their shitty Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I know this is going to make me a pariah among anybody who's a Star Wars fan, because this was the one big thing everyone was about. The Obi-Wan Kenobi origin movie, because it's the only one that can actually work with the casting. And I'm going to say it's not fucking worth it. If you ruined a Han Solo origin film starring Woody Harrelson and Thandie Newton, and you ruined it, and you ruined the character from the original saga all the way until, like, now? I do not give a shit about your Obi-Wan Kenobi origin film. Nobody gives a shit about the origin stories of Star Wars characters.
Watch the film theory on Han Solo, and everything you thought you knew and loved about Han Solo is ruined by the new movie.
That is true, but even if you never piece together what he had brought up in that video, which I won't spoil because I really love film theory and MatPat and game theory and all of his stuff, and you should really support him and check out his video. It's really, really good and well thought out, well researched. But even without that, you ruined a Han Solo origin film. You ruined the Star Wars franchise worse than the prequel trilogy of films. I don't give a shit about your fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi origin. I don't give a shit, even if you bring Ewan McGregor in as the casting. Do not care.
Now going on to, back to DC.
Sorry.
Now going back to DC, I will say that the franchise was dead on arrival, in my opinion. Like, Man of Steel was what I saw as the best film that they had to offer.
Saying that Justice League is the most watchable film is not the same as saying that it's the best.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I watched it for very, very ironic reasons. But that being said, like saying that, Man of Steel is the best film, in my opinion. Like, the films have just progressively gotten worse and worse.
And worse, and all of the marketing and all of the feedback, and especially all of the response from the fans. The people who like DC Comics. The people you should be marketing towards, because we live in an era where it's better and more financially successful to market towards your niche audience than to market towards quote-unquote everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Wonder Woman, I think, was a one-hit wonder. I think
Wonder Woman was truly dreadful and terrible and a very bad idea of what to emulate.
I'm talking about like box office wise. I think the first one was a one-hit wonder.
I don't think Wonder Woman 80... I can't even like get through this entire title without cringing and like vomiting in my mouth slightly. I'm gonna try. I'm sorry, it's actually very difficult. Wonder Woman 84. Wonder Woman 1984. Fuck you, Warner Brothers, and fuck you, Patty Jenkins. God damn it.
But it's the 80s, so she gets to wear like all these like crazy 80s outfits, and she'll get to like
you mean we get to have another dress-up montage? Oh my god, I can't wait.
Because Stranger Things is super popular.
Oh yeah, and what was the episode of Stranger Things that all of the fans loved? The one where Eleven got a makeover.
Oh wait, they
didn't. Yeah. Fans really fucking hated that. Fans are gonna hate this too. Okay, yeah, we should get into this because, like, this is what just came out and what kind of spiraled a lot of this. But, so yeah, the new Wonder Woman movie is gonna take place in the 80s. It's called Wonder Woman 1984. And from what Patty Jenkins has said at San Diego Comic-Con, it really, truly, honestly has nothing to do with the book 1984. Maybe it does. But considering how badly she fucked up the character of Wonder Woman, I don't have any faith that she can do any right by the book 1984. 1984 is a little bit more advanced than Wonder Woman. Like,
well, I think they're alluding to the book, but more talking about like the actual 1984, not what.
I know, but that's a problem if that's literally the title of your fucking movie.
Because people are going to
think... Exactly. It would be different if it took place in 1984, but the movie was called, Wonder Woman 1980s or something stupid like that.
Well, they might do something
Wonder Woman 2, but you couldn't do Wonder Woman 2 because we've already established that Wonder Woman has sat out WW2 like a pussy and a coward. I'm very upset about that still to this day.
That would have made more sense. Wonder Woman 1 is World War 1. Wonder Woman 2 is World War 2.
Like,
and then
duh.
Wonder Woman 3 would be World War 3.
Duh. I mean, not really. We kind of need like a Wonder Woman 2.4 to be the Vietnam War, but like that would be fine.
I don't think that a character like Gal Gadot could
not
handle...
a character like Gal Gadot with the director Patty Jenkins, but
yes, I mean a character like Gal Gadot.
No, I agree.
Not an actor.
I agree. But like in theoretical fantasy land where like I could have the rights to pick a director and writer and like do the Wonder Woman I would want to do, the idea of having the third Wonder Woman movie be about the Vietnam War would be like super, super, super excellent in my mind. I would be like all about that. Not this piece of shit, because it's not Wonder Woman, but like,
Dude, they're not going to have Wonder Woman coming.
Of course they're not going to fucking do that, because they can't have the character who was the original patriotic superhero, whose core values mean that she supports and accepts people of different ideology, race, ethnicity, gender orientation, and religion as like her default position, and her, being immortal and like being intelligent before she's strong, and her being very capable and very compassionate, and throwing all that shit out the window to make her the fucking Disney princess, Little Mermaid. I have to fuck the first man I ever lay eyes on, and that's the only man I can ever be in love with, and that's most of my purpose in life.
And that's the reason why we gotta bring Steve Trevor back.
That's why we have to bring Steve and Trevor back. Even more than like women having the right to vote or anything like that.
Oh yeah. If you didn't notice,
that shit.
If you didn't notice, in the original Wonder Woman movie, or Wonder Woman by Patty Jenkins, Etta Candy was wearing the outfit of a suffragette. That really only gets brought up for like a split second in the entire movie.
Actually, the context around that is a little bit more important than that. Etta Candy is a really interesting figure in the comics because in the 1940s, she was like, there was kind of a little bit of a joke about how she was always like eating chocolates and that's why she was fat. But really, it was framed more in the idea of like, she's she's body positive and very capable, and like her size never stopped her from doing anything she wanted to do. She just never felt bad about the way she looked. She loved the way she looked, and she wasn't going to do something like give up like some of the simple pleasures in life over the fact that she wasn't skinny enough to attract a husband, which was not her interest or her goal at all. All of that aside, in this movie, Etta Candy is a receptionist, which Gal Gadot notes makes her like a slave, and thus only worth treating with as much respect as you would treat a slave. A lot of people did not care to notice that in this super feminist, women-positive film with, super enormous air quotes all around all of that, the only scene where Etta Candy actually tries to have a conversation with quote-unquote Wonder Woman, who in 3 movies still has not been actually called Wonder Woman by anybody at any time, which is bullshit. But I won't call her Diana Prince because that's not right either. The only time Etta Candy actually tries to have a conversation with her, she's specifically bringing up the suffragette movement. She's like, yeah, do you know that, like, women don't have the right to vote? And isn't that stupid? Because, like, women are human beings, and we should have the right to do the exact same thing that all other human beings can do. And Wonder Woman is literally not speaking to her. She refuses to engage with Etta Candy.
Oh, how do I fight in these pretty dresses?
How do I fight in these pretty dresses? I'm in the middle of my dress-up montage. I'm ignoring everything you have to say because, you know, where I come from, we call that slavery. Thus, you are not worth talking to. That is some, like, really horrible, toxic, like, women on women hatred that's going on right there. And people
That
want to
nobody
talk about, like,
addressed.
nobody talks about. And that's a big problem. Wonder Woman does not stand up for the rights of women, let alone human beings or people of any, like, ethnicity, religion, gender orientation,
and
or
if
whatever
you're somebody who doesn't like identity politics, Wonder Woman is not a character for you.
You're
because
never gonna like Wonder Woman.
is identity politics. Like, that's what she is.
But she is identity politics done right.
Right.
Like, for the most part.
I mean, she does, like, start off as kind of SJW type, where it's like, oh, men are terrible, and blah, blah, blah.
no.
But then she expands when she
first of
actually
all-
learns man's world.
No. First of all, from everything I have heard of her, she has never been of the perspective of men are terrible. And I'm not saying there are no comics. No. I'm not saying there are no comics of
And
that.
animated stuff.
And animated stuff. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But more importantly, what she takes a negative stance on is war, poverty, intolerance, bigotry. That's more what she talks about. And even if she uses the term man, the problem is that generally she means human and not necessarily like masculine man.
I think that's what a lot of people get hung up on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the whole feminism argument of like, if you're for equality of the sexes, why are you called feminism? But you do have to take into account the fact that Wonder Woman was created in the 1940s, where a lot of the shit she's talking about, and a lot of the shit that her male author is advocating for, is unheard of and super radical, and is still radical today in 2018, and still is more liberal and interesting and radical than any of the shit that the quote-unquote feminist female quote-unquote director was able to do in the 2017 fucking live-action, studio-produced, financially, critically successful Wonder Woman film. Things like, hey, Wonder Woman is my identity, not Diana Prince. Hey, I can wear a sexy outfit and I feel empowered by that, regardless of what anyone thinks of me, and nobody's opinion is going to change what I think. Hey, I care about women. I care about men. I care about people who are Christians and Muslims and who are Islamic and who are any sort of ethnicity. I care about gay people. I care about people who are queer because I grew up on an island of fucking all women, so I actually give a shit about that. I don't believe in this shit of like being bigoted and being shitty to other people just because they don't like their demographic identity. That's what's bullshit. And I am willing to sacrifice my title, my armor, my superpowers to defend the rights of human beings to be human beings, to their right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You know, the American ideals, which Wonder Woman fucking stands for.
Except for not in the new one, because she's not American at all, and she spends almost no time in America whatsoever. Fuck you.
That's probably where she's going to be in 1984, though.
That's not going to make it any better. She's still skipping out on World War II. And there's a very specific reason for it, I think.
Well,
there's two very specific reasons.
Which makes even less sense, because if she's in fucking Britain when the movie fucking ends and then, like, ducks out after World War II, do you know how much fucking Britain was fucked up based on World War II?
Well, and France, which is where she's at the beginning of Justice League.
So where the fuck was she?
I agree.
What happened? What happened during that time?
There's two reasons why they're not doing World War II. One is Captain America, which is a dumb reason and is not an excusable reason. Number two, she can't be in America and like be for all of those things and be like an American fighting like Nazi Germany and like punching Hitler like she did in the comics, there's also like the really big underlying thing that you can't touch on nowadays, which is the fact that America was also like really super duper supremely evil and bigoted during World War II, particularly to peoples of Asian descent and Asian American descent. And yes, they were Japanese internment camps, but really there was a lot of racist shit of like, we can't tell Japanese and Koreans and Chinese people apart, and Hawaiian people and like a lot of Southeast Asian people apart. So we're just not going to service you. You're not allowed in our restaurants. You're not allowed in our grocery stores. And if we see you, we're going to throw you. It's not going to be as bad as the concentration camp, but it's going to be about on par with what we have right now with the illegal immigrants at this exact moment, which is why they're not dealing with any of that. You're stripping Wonder Woman of a lot of her patriotism because you can't stand up for America in a way that's like going to be like, hey, America and American pride, without like actually stepping on the fact that like America really, 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 really fucking sucks. It sucked for a long time and it really sucks right now. This idea of American exceptionalism is a long time gone and nobody believes this shit anymore.
Well, the studios like to press ideology, like this
You
like,
notice
great
Captain
ideology.
America doesn't do a lot of American exceptionalism in the MCU movies.
That is true. It's also because he's sporting the Puerto Rican flag on his outfit. Which is kind of funny because like there was this whole like issue about like this woman getting harassed because she's wearing like the shirt of Puerto Rico. And I looked at it and I was like, that's fucking Captain America's look.
Yep. Very true. And I mean, like, that's the shit that's gonna happen when you specifically hire a woman who is supposed to play a character who stands for acceptance of people regardless of their race, creed, nationality, gender orientation, and upbringing, but you specifically hired a woman who is pro-genocide.
Well, I'm also gonna say...
play her.
I'm also gonna say that... you want a director who's not going to be very controversial, is going to, adhere to the rules and all that kind of stuff. Which is why you hire...
pick a has-been.
You pick a director who hasn't made a movie since 2003, I believe, was when Monster came out.
Oh, I thought it was 2005, but that's still more than a decade.
Yeah. She hadn't made a movie for a very long time.
And now we see the reason why. Also, the big thing is Patty Jenkins.
She did like.
I think it's important to point out.
She produced and did a couple episodes of The Killing, and she did a couple episodes of fucking Entourage. Like the most.
It is important to point out that she was not their first choice, or their second choice, or their third choice. Like she was way down at the bottom of the list.
I think Jane Campion and
It's because they specifically were going after female directors who had won awards. And they were going down the list in terms of their actual quality and relevance. And Patty Jenkins was at the bottom. And with Wonder Woman, we saw why.
Well, that's why they hired Ava Duvernay. That's why they hired Ava Duvernay for New Gods. Was because of her success with Selma.
Even though that's all been undone by Wrinkle in Time. But it is worth pointing out that, like, I do say the word director very generously because just because you told Gal Gadot to put her arm up to deflect a bullet in a way that looks like Rosie the Riveter, it does not make you a feminist director or mean that you have anything to say or mean that you actually can make a fucking Wonder Woman movie, because that's clearly not true in this case. You still cannot make a Wonder Woman movie where the character of Wonder Woman, who, as she put it, is the quote-unquote extreme of the potential that all women are capable of, and yet you have that character not be tolerant or accepting, be extremely not naive, but flat out fucking stupid and dumb and completely unintelligent in a society that should embrace intelligence. She has no strength, she has no ability. Literally, she does the least amount that she could do, and she looks pretty while she does it. You know, what Ronald Reagan said about the AIDS crisis, That's what Wonder Woman is. She does the least amount possible while looking pretty and fuckable. And she still also does the Disney princess thing of, like, literally the first man I look at is going to be the only man I ever have sex with and the only man that I like. Because even though I'm a progressive feminist figure who's a role model for all children, I have to explicitly say that although I'm a virgin and not at all into women, even though I grew up on an island with only women, and in the comics I've proven multiple times that I am very queer and LGBTQ friendly, I totally am not into women, you guys. I'm only about that dick. And I've done years of studying the Kama Sutra, so I'm totally an awesome sex goddess. But you know I'm a virgin because I've only been around women, and I'm totally not into women.
It's interesting that you mentioned the AIDS crisis, because 1984 was also a pivotal year for the AIDS crisis.
Let me guess, it's not going to be mentioned anywhere at all, ever.
It might be mentioned in the background, but that's
Oh, you mean the way the women's rights movement was mentioned in the background as like a throwaway thing that Wonder Woman, this feminist icon, literally could not give a shit about or even verbally respond to?
Here's my suggestion.
You mean like that?
Here's my suggestion. If Patty Jenkins isn't going to make that kind of movie for you, you should hire somebody else to make an intro like you did for Zack Snyder's Watchmen.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, because at the same time that all of this stupid, just the same way I can't stand calling her Wonder Woman, I can't stand calling this Wonder Woman 84. This is fucking horrible. This is literally a nightmare. But there is supposedly, possibly going to be a sequel to the 2009 animated Wonder Woman film. All we know for certain is, like, some of the actors from that film, voice actors, have been reprieved.
No,
maybe.
I don't even know that.
Oh. So hopefully it's going to be that Wonder Woman and not the Gal Gadot-ified Wonder Woman who reads books with nothing written on it while looking sexy in the comic.
I'd be okay if they adapted the costume.
The costume is not the problem. The problem is that, like, after the movie, they've adapted the comics to be, like, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, to the point where, like, one of the most, like, iconic photos of her, like, drawings of her from the comics is literally her standing on a cliff in a model pose with her boobs and her butt out, holding a book, which would be super cool, except for the fact that you can literally see that the book has very few pages and nothing written in it. That is, like, the best image of what Gal Gadot is. Like, yes, at a very superficial glance, like, maybe it's female empowerment, but, like, if you actually look at it for a full, like, one Mississippi full second, you would realize, like, no, that's bullshit. She has no muscles, so she's not strong, she's not agile, she doesn't read anything, she's not intelligent, she doesn't stand for any principles. It's just bullshit. You hired a pretty model to be fuckable, and you mostly highlighted how fuckable she was and tried to sell that as quote-unquote feminism. Especially because... I find
it kind of funny that so many critics, female critics, were pretty much responding the exact same way as guys were, and just ogling at how impossibly gorgeous she was. And I was like, I thought this was about objective criticism.
Well, also, like, we have porn. Like, we have porn for free anytime you want, and you still think Gal Gadot is, like, especially attractive?
Come on, you know women don't look at porn.
What women have you ever hung out with? Okay, I grew up watching...
They read 50 Shades of Grey instead.
Okay, that might be true, but I still grew up watching Gilmore Girls, Alias, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I can name at least 10 actresses from those shows that are way fucking hotter than Gal Gadot. I can also definitely name at least 10 or 15 actresses in the Marvel MCU who are way hotter than Gal Gadot. Most notably and most recently, the amazing, beautiful, gay, queer icon that is Tessa Thompson playing Valkyrie. Super fucking hot. Yes, please. Why the fuck are we talking about Gal Gadot? Really. That being said, the other big problem that feeds into this fact that Wonder Woman, quote unquote Wonder Woman, is not feminist at all is it's really a big problem outside of her, like the fact that she's mostly reduced to her sexuality and that she is not intelligent and all of the shit that's been written about how like Amazons are immortal, and because they're immortal they take like the very Greek philosophical idea of like the health of the body is as important as the health of the mind, and like Themyscira is actually like a really amazing epicenter of engineering, medicine, technology, intellectualism, because these women live for fucking ever. They learn all of these things.
But their society hasn't advanced at all.
Not like, in the movies. I'm talking about in the comics.
Like in the movies, it's like they haven't gotten past like the medieval period, which
at
if you
best,
were,
it doesn't even look like they got that far.
If you were going to look at like just based on the movies and how long they've lived, you would assume that there must be a lot of war going on, even though the movies have clearly stated that there isn't. So why are they training?
Because they're ignorant of all the war that's been going on.
So why are they fucking training so goddamn much?
I agree.
You know, and all this kind of stuff. If like that's not a problem that they have to face all the fucking time.
Because they're ignorant to the outside world.
But apparently they're aware of all world's cultures, but they're ignorant. I don't get it. I don't understand how the world works.
No, it's super bullshit. It doesn't function at all. All of that being said, there is a really big problem with the fact that, like, in 2 Wonder Woman movies, you've had 3 villains that are essentially... Okay, this is gonna be weird, but this is, like, really sexist in the way that the Bible is sexist. Mm-hmm. When you look at, like, the story of Genesis and the Bible, and I'm not even going into a lot of the obscure stuff with, like, Lilith and, like, the original wife and all of that shit. I'm just saying. The super bullshit thing about the story of Genesis is that man is seen as better than woman because woman was tricked by the devil into biting into the apple of knowledge and understanding life and culture, and Adam was tricked by woman, but like woman is more evil, and that's why she's been reduced to like a lot of the punishments of things like having a fucking period and shit like that.
I don't understand where you're going with this.
Knowledge poisons women more than it poisons men. In the book of Genesis.
Hence Dr. Poison?
Hence Dr. Poison, hence Ares, and now hence Cheetah. In 2 movies, you've had 3 villains who are all like scientists and intellectuals. And this is kind of an ongoing problem with superheroes in general, but it's especially bad when you do it with Wonder Woman, when you specifically read out all of her intellectualism and all of her years of study. And Wonder Woman is kind of a special case because in the comics she's always been the youngest out of everybody, and that's still true in the movies, but like you specifically took this woman who is not naive, she's not a fish out of water, she's literally just fucking stupid. And all of her villains are intellectuals. To the point where I'm like, what, are you gonna have Wonder Woman say things, like, when you have that conversation with Etta Candy, where Etta Candy is like, hey, isn't it insane that women don't have the right to vote? And Wonder Woman is like literally not listening. She like walks down the street and she's like, why do I have to cover up my outfit? But she's not, and like, why are those people holding hands? Are they in a relationship? But she's not like, hey, why is that person the only woman who's around? Why are there no women walking around the streets running their errands? Why are there no women involved in war? Why are there no women fighting on the front lines? Where I come from, all the women are great warriors. What the fuck is your backwards-ass society where women can't fight?
That's a great example of, like, you know, totally misunderstanding the comics, because, like, the Wonder Woman that I know from the comics would have brought that up, like, first thing. She would have just been like, where are the
She
women?
absolutely would have been.
Yeah.
It's like, why is your, like, room of war strategists all men?
Yeah.
Why don't they have any women war strategists? And the reason why they couldn't do that is because Wonder Woman never has a thought about war strategy in the entire fucking movie.
And also...
She walks on the field and holds her shield in front of her, and that's the best thing she can ever do.
Well, and also, I do possibly see that some of the backlash with like social justice things for Warner Brothers, they were like, well, let's not get controversial with this.
That's dumb. You literally cannot have a
You can't do it with Wonder Woman. You can do it with a lot of other stuff, but like Wonder Woman...
You can't do it with Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman is the epitome of social justice. Now, you can interpret that however you want, but like...
Oh, and it's definitely been done badly. I'm not going to say it hasn't been done badly, but that's who she is. That is her principle. That is her core. That is what she stands for as a character. But what I'm saying is, when you strip her of all of that, you strip her of all of her intellectualism and all of her curiosity and all of her interest about the world and all of her thoughts, because that's what you did. You reduced her into a fucking sex object. After all of that, you only pit her against intellectuals. I'm like, what's Wonder Woman gonna say? Like, climate change isn't real? Abortion is murder? Like, what is she gonna be saying in 1984 as Wonder Woman? And the reason why I say that is because, like, in the 80s, there was a comic series that was geared to be, like, a really interesting feminist piece where, Wonder Woman didn't have her powers anymore. All of the Amazons had to, like, flee to an alternate dimension. And when they did that, she was gonna lose her title as Wonder Woman, her outfit, and her superpowers. And she said that instead of going with them and retaining all of that, she was going to stay in America and still, without all of that shit, still defend humankind. Which I love that idea. I love it when superheroes can show that their superpowers aren't the reason why they're special. It's because... the only decent argument I've heard for why the original Wonder Woman movie is good is the only idea I've heard is that Wonder Woman, out of anyone in the DCEU, is the only character who does the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I don't agree with that, but that idea is very strong and powerful. And
I've heard a lot of people argue because she smiles when she fights.
That's dumb. That is a dumb reason for her to be a good character. But... in this series, because she didn't have Themyscira to go back on, and she had to, like, make a living for herself and all this shit, she was, like, a fashion boutique owner, which she's an independent business entrepreneur. It's fine. Her dress-up montages still were not nearly as bad as they were in the Patty Jenkins movie that was released in 2017. But there was a lot of interesting content in regards to, like, feminism ideology, where, like, Wonder Woman was questioning it, but not in that, like, she was putting down feminism as being stupid. She was more of, like, instead of saying, like, you know, feminism isn't about equal rights, she was more of, like, if feminism is about equal rights, why are you saying female? Or, like, things like, oh, hey, you're fighting for equal rights for women, what rights do women not have? And she was kind of being educated by people all over America of, like, what they were fighting for. And the ending was going to be very specifically like Wonder Woman defending an abortion clinic that was being attacked by terrorists. And that would have been super fucking interesting. But quote unquote feminist pioneer, or whatever you want to call her, Gloria Steinem, said, hey, you can't take Wonder Woman and strip her of her costume and her powers. That's bullshit. And she actually got the series canceled before that issue came out.
Yeah, if you're
this is the reason why.
If you're unfamiliar who Gloria Steinem is, she was a very prominent feminist, and probably her most famous line that she's ever said is, women need men like a fish needs a bicycle.
And it's like, great, why don't you just, like, widen that divide between people of different genders? Like,
yeah. She's kind of the bridge between second and third wave feminism that I see a lot of, like, issues and stuff coming from, and you know why people are immediately averse to, like, hearing stuff about, like, social justice and, like, women's rights and all this kind of stuff, because then it gets into this, women are better than men, women are smarter than men, women are more moral inherently than men. That kind of stuff.
Exactly. So when you take Wonder Woman, you're specifically putting her in the 1980s. You're very specifically making it about the love story between her and Steve Trevor, which, yes, it's now official, even though we've known it, like, literally since the first Wonder Woman came out, because the DCEU can't
keep a secret.
They can't keep a secret, and they can't hold suspense to save their life. They're like, Superman's dead. 5 minutes later, no, we put in the movie that he's totally alive, and we're also going to say in, like, all of our press releases that Henry Cavill is totally going to be in Justice League. He's going to be in our initial teaser trailers and in all of our posters. But, like, that doesn't give away the fact that Superman's still alive, right? Like, actually, I saw Suicide Squad the second time I saw it with my moms, and one of my moms was like, oh, hey, she hadn't seen Batman v Superman, but she was watching Suicide Squad, and after the movie, she's like, oh, I think it's really cool that, like, this is the storyline where, like, Superman's dead, and, like, they don't know what to do about it, and I'm like, but we all know Superman's not dead, and she got mad at me, like I had spoiled it, and I'm like, but, like, everything spoils it. It's everywhere, like, I still felt bad for spoiling it. I didn't mean to.
Well,
but,
yeah,
like,
I mean, the initial poster of the Justice League had Superman front and center.
Exactly. Like, we all knew it was going to happen. The same way we all knew that Chris Pine was going to return as Steve Trevor in this Wonder Woman movie that takes place in the 80s. But you specifically have a movie with Wonder Woman in the 80s. It's as, you know, again, as she said, it's, as Patty Jenkins said, she wants it to be like a Romeo-Juliet style, like, love epic. Which is gross, and, like, please don't. But you're gonna do that,
She
and you're
tried
gonna
to
have
do
it take
that
place
with
in the
Thor,
80s,
and then
and
she
I'm
got
like,
fired from that.
she got fired from that because it sucked! So now she's trying to do the story that she had initially planned for Thor and Natalie Portman to work for Wonder Woman and Chris Pine. Gross. Stop it. But all of that, and also, like, you stripped her of all of her intellectualism, and you're only having her fight, like, scientists and people who are intelligent. Like, what the fuck is that about? Like, why is Wonder Woman... Like, you specifically hired and casted a woman who is, like, totally okay with racial genocide. Like, yay, awesome. That was a shit idea. Why the fuck are we letting her get away with that?
Well, let's blame that more on Zack Snyder, because he was the one who...
He is the one who did it, and, like, Gal Gadot...
He cast her because...
He wants to fuck her. That's the only reason why he casts anybody. That's the only reason why people let Wonder Woman slide. And that's the reason why I say Wonder Woman is not anything close to, like, a feminist empowerment.
We also sucker
like,
punch. He
role model.
hired 90% of those people. Because
he wanted to fuck them. Yeah, exactly. We all saw that shit. We all saw Silk Spectre in Watchmen, the only actor who couldn't act to save her life. But she was really hot to look at, so, like, she was there.
Well, also, they completely missed the idea of Silk Spectre actually wearing silk over her outfit to make herself more modest, to counter, because she was a staunch feminist, what her mom originally did, which was a lot more, like, open and sexual.
Yeah, that was some interesting shit that was not explored in the movies at all, and fuck that shit. So all of that Wonder Woman 84 literally every piece of information I learn about this makes me feel like worse and worse about it. And I already felt terrible about the original Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah,
and everything I learned makes it seem worse.
We heard about the footage that was shown at Comic-Con, given the fact that nothing has been leaked as of right now.
She throws some punches and fights with quote-unquote spirit, meaning that she smiles the whole time, because even though Gal Gadot is a world-famous supermodel, she can only make 3 faces.
And what was funny was, like, in the description, they talked about the slow-mo, because it's...
Of course it has slow-mo, because you can't do anything else with her without slow-mo.
Yeah, like...
She's incapable.
Like, here's the thing. For all the complaints that you make about Zack Snyder and slow-mo, I swear to God, there is more slow-mo in Wonder Woman than literally any of Zack Snyder.
The worst thing...
Maybe 300 had more slow-mo, but, like, that was done, like, artistically and stuff like that, and that was kind of the style of the movie, but, like... Outside of that, I think Wonder Woman has the most slow-mo out of any superhero movie, period.
The worst thing is I've given Zack Snyder a lot of shit for being super misogynistic because he considered his movie Sucker Punch to be a feminist film, and that is the most misogynistic anti-woman film I think I might have ever seen in my fucking life. But, you know what he did?
Porky's.
I haven't seen Porky's. But, you know what? He did a much better job with the and a much more feminist job with the Amazons than quote-unquote feminist, quote-unquote director Patty Jenkins did in Wonder Woman. He actually dressed them in appropriate garb, and he actually selected women who could do the fucking work and actually do the shit that they could do, and highlighted their muscles, their biceps, their abs, their physical abilities, which is way more than Patty Jenkins did with Gal Gadot in the entirety of Wonder Woman.
I mean, I will say that, like,
And she dressed all the Amazons in fucking bullshit that all of the extras were like, dude, we can't move in this. You have to let us breathe. You have to let us move. Like, they were in physical pain. And they were in, like, really... Like, they had horrible chafing because they were wearing this terrible fucking armor that wasn't conducive to, like, what their actual bodies were. And, like, I know a lot of people were like, oh my god, Zack Snyder, he's showing off their bodies. But he wasn't showing off, like, their boobs or their butts or their vaginas the way he did with Wonder Woman. He was like, hey, you can see their, like, 8-pack washboard abs. Isn't that sexy? Because that is sexy. It's way more awesome to see badass women who can actually do the stunts and actually do the physical work, who can show off their muscles, more than it is to look at Gal Gadot's one of 3 fucking faces for an hour and a half.
I don't know. Some people are, like, enamored by her face. I don't get it. But...
She has 3 fucking faces. She has the smile with, like, the up eyebrows. She has the smile with the, like, creased eyebrows, which is the one she uses, like, 75% of the time, including in all of the promo work. And then she has, like, the closed mouth with the furrow brow. And that's every face that Gal Gadot ever has had, ever, in any of her photos, and any of her interviews, and any of her photo shoots, and all of her promo for Wonder Woman.
Also, like, I will say that she is a sucker for selfies. Good God. When she was... Okay, we saw, like, a brief bit of the Comic-Con thing that just happened a couple hours ago. And literally the first thing that she does...
I'm not going to get mad at her. No. I can't get mad at her for having her phone out like that because I can't tell if she's taking a selfie or if she's filming the audience. We literally went and we saw Shin Godzilla with the director of Shin Godzilla, and he was like a warm, lovable teddy bear. And he had his phone out the entire time, and he said it was like he's filming the audience the whole time because he wants to remember that moment forever. Like,
okay, well,
it could have been similar. Okay. It looked like she was just taking a bunch of selfies, but I don't know that.
Well, I mean, but like based on like the videos that I've seen of Gal Gadot. Like,
her one picture from her 2 years in the Israeli military where she's just like...
She's laying
hand
down...
on her wrist with her legs crossed behind her like a fucking
And she was modeling at the same time, like, okay, I know how the American military works, and I'm curious about the Israeli military because, like, it's mandatory for everybody to do it.
It's mandatory for everyone.
I think they let her off a lot.
Well, she was not in active combat. They've said
a lot of people in the American military aren't part of active combat, and don't let them tell you differently.
Yes, but like she wasn't in active combat for the 2 mandatory years that she had to be in the military. She spent most of the time modeling. I've heard that she was supposed to be a combat instructor. I've also heard that she's supposed to be a hip-hop dancer, and I've seen her quote-unquote dancing skills, and they're worse than amateur. She cannot dance to save her. We saw it in Wonder Woman. She literally cannot dance. She cannot sing. She cannot act. And then on top of that, she spent most of her time in the military doing modeling work.
No.
That does not give her badass points for doing the exact same thing that everyone else in Israel has done.
So,
everyone in America, like, here's the thing. This is not to make people who haven't graduated from high school feel bad. But do you give kudos to, like, anyone who's graduated high school in America?
No.
Because it's, like, legally mandatory. I'm not saying this, like, if you haven't graduated high school, like, shame on you. It's fine if you haven't. But, like, just because you graduated high school doesn't mean, like, oh, you get kudos. You're amazing. You're qualified for a role in a Hollywood film.
I know this is cruel to say, but, like, half the people who graduate from college, I don't think the same way. Like, I'll cheer them if I, like, see them, like, out and about, but, like, you know, you graduated from college, so, like...
And that's not worth giving you $9 million for a 3-movie Hollywood big-budget franchise deal.
Right. Yeah, but that being said, so we have a lot of reservations against Wonder Woman, and, you know, what's funny is we actually had a lot more to talk about it, but we cut it. Because, well, quite frankly, you don't want to hear us go on and on and on and on about how much we hate Wonder Woman.
Although if you do, I will gladly sit down and record for like 3 solid hours how wrong the Wonder Woman movie is and how amazing the Charles Martin comics are.
And there are some podcasts that we did, you know, discussing that very fact.
Also, if you want a feminist Wonder Woman movie, there are 2 amazing feminist Wonder Woman movies you can watch. You can watch the 2009 animated film, or you can watch the Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman live-action film that came out, directed and written by Angela Robinson, who is an amazing writer-director, a wonderful queer female director who actually understands the context and the source material, and created a beautiful personal movie that, while it's not a comic book movie necessarily, even though it has a lot of content about the comics, understands a lot more about the source material than anybody involved in DCEU has, and it's created a much more personally poignant, beautiful, even romantic tale than quote-unquote feminist quote-unquote director Patty Jenkins is even capable of anymore. Patty Jenkins is too old to be cool. She is. And that's not about her age. Too old to be cool is a frame of mind. George Miller is old as fuck, and he's not too old to be cool. Tim Burton is pretty fucking young. He's way too old to be cool. Patty Jenkins has the same problem. She's too old to be cool.
Yeah. Now, I will say, based on the trailers that we saw, and like our main topic of conversation, we're talking about Titans, Aquaman, Shazam, and the prospective Wonder Woman 1984, which unfortunately we didn't have a trailer to talk about, but we
had comments made at San Diego Comic-Con by the director and actress,
Yeah, so, you know, and let's be fair, Wonder Woman is, at least right now, the center of the DCEU, or at least who they're pushing the most right now.
Even though they're not smart enough to realize that they should push for more feminist content due to the success of Wonder Woman. But
I would agree, and I honestly think that the success of the Captain Marvel movie
is going to obliterate it.
Yeah, like, if the Captain Marvel movie is good, then it's probably going to eliminate the buzz and success of Wonder Woman.
I do think that's going to happen for 2 reasons.
Brie Larson's a better actress.
Yes, the casting is spot on is the first thing. Brie Larson as Captain Marvel is one of the smartest casting decisions you could have possibly made.
I really don't like the stuff that she said, like, off camera, because, like, she's said a lot. She's been, like, really talking about, like, male critics need to, like, just not do stuff.
God, and that shit's all wrong.
Yeah, she said some misandrous stuff lately, and
so did Jennifer Lawrence with Mother, and Mother was still great, and Jennifer Lawrence was still great in Mother.
Now, getting on to the Marvel Universe just for a quick bit, I'm a little scared that they are seeming to pick up some of the trends that weren't very successful. I don't know if you've heard about Comicsgate, but there were a lot of people that were rejecting kind of the political ideas of Marvel, and it seems like they're kind of adapting some of that stuff into their
And we're going to kind of get into that with, like, our next podcast. It's going to be about, like, some of the stuff that's come out about that. But the other thing of why I'm really hopeful about Captain Marvel being a lot better than Wonder Woman is, their casting is very intelligent. They didn't pick somebody who's pro-genocide to play a character who stands for equality and acceptance. But B, even though historically I'm not into the MCEU, and even though I didn't see Ant-Man and Wasp, and I have no desire to,
it's
you
MCU.
can't... MCU, what did... Oh, did I say MCEU?
MCU, yeah.
Sorry, MCU.
It's confusing because it's MCU and then DCEU.
Yeah. I have no desire to see Ant-Man and Wasp, and nobody's going to talk me into seeing that movie, save your breath. But, with the exception of that movie that looked like kind of garbage in my eyes, Phase 3 has been extraordinarily good. The fact that Black Panther was so good critically and financially, not just in America, but also abroad, as opposed to Suicide Squad, which was profitable abroad and not here. This was a movie that proved, outside of the independent market in terms of blockbuster films, that movies with a cast that was almost exclusively people of color could sell well overseas.
Because
that
you
is
made a good fucking movie.
Because you made a good fucking movie.
Yeah, you can't
that is
just,
a historical benchmark.
Well, yeah, and the truth of the matter is like, yes, we do need more progressivism and all that kind of stuff, but like, you know, first and foremost, you need to make a good movie. Everything else comes secondary.
I agree. But in casting for decades, the comment has always been, if we cast people of color, we can't sell this movie outside of America. And this movie specifically spat in the face of that ideology, and that is fucking important. But even politics aside, then you turned around and you made Avengers 3, in my eyes, the only good Avengers film. You took a character that I've despised for a decade and actually made me like him. And to be fair, I don't really like most of Infinity War that much. I wouldn't really watch it a second time necessarily. But it was actually entertaining enough for me to watch a full time through, and I didn't hate myself afterwards, which to me is a sign of a good MCU film. And again, a big part of it is just taste. I'm not saying if you liked Infinity War 3 you're bad, or you're wrong, or you're stupid. It's very much personal taste. I'm not saying Infinity Wars was bad at all. I'm saying it was so good that even I liked it.
Yeah, and see, the problem that I see with the DCEU films is they've essentially planned...
And Homecoming, not Spider-Man really. Homecoming was amazing. I loved Spider-Man Homecoming. And I went into that movie prepared to hate it because I'm a big defender of the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So
which you were heavily in the minority with that one.
I know I'm heavily in the minority on, and I will totally concede the scripts suck. You don't have to tell me the scripts suck.
I thought he was a great Spider-Man. I thought he was an okay Peter Parker.
I thought he was really good at both. The problem was he was too pretty, and that was a problem with the stylist. They needed to play him down, which is possible. And I totally agree the scripts were bad, but there were a lot of other really good components to those movies. But that aside, I specifically went into Spider-Man Homecoming saying, fuck this movie, fuck this new Spider-Man, fuck this reboot, we've seen the origin a million times, I'm so sick of this, I don't give a shit, I'm gonna hate watch this movie. And it was way better than Amazing Spider-Man. It was definitely a lot better than Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's, which I hate with a searing passion. It was definitely actually true to the Spider-Man comics that I grew up with. And it was different, and it was its own thing, and it fit into the canon really well. Oh, the other reason I was prepared to hate it was I did hate Spider-Man in Civil War. I know that was a big thing, but I hated everything he said in Spider-Man, Captain America Civil War. I hated Spider-Man in that movie. Oh, I saw this really old movie called Star Wars. I don't know if you've heard of it. Fuck Civil War for that. Fuck that. But even with all the animosity against it, I still fucking loved Homecoming. And with all my animosity against Thanos, I was still totally tolerable towards Infinity War, and I grew to like Thanos as a villain.
Yeah.
All of my insane biases aside, they were still able to turn a lot of the movies from Phase 3 around for me.
And speaking of villains, like
DCEU's not going to get there.
DCEU, yeah, like one of the things they fucked up the most on was their villains, and like quite frankly, like DC has a significantly better rogues gallery than Marvel does. Like has been for the longest. I mean, just Batman Universe alone has like the best rogues gallery you can find in comics.
Absolutely, you have the Joker, you have Penguin, you have Poison Ivy. Catwoman is a little bit on the fence.
Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, but only
Two-Face.
in the animated series. Two-Face in a lot of iterations. Clayface is actually usually pretty good. Mad Hatter can be really good. I just wish they utilized him more and more things. Bane.
Well, Bane is good. I prefer...
Not when he's played by fucking Tom Hardy. That was bad casting.
Yeah, well, that was another whitewash cast because, like, quite frankly,
I can call out actors I adore for being whitewashed. Tom Hardy, you should not have taken that. That was a bad idea.
He's a freaking luchador. Like that's kind of Bane's thing, and like they should have played up his my biggest frustration
Lex Luthor too.
Lex Luthor is literally one of the greatest villains in comics,
and he still has not been done right in live action.
Yeah, I fucking hate the Gene Hackman. I hate the
not Gene Hackman as a person or as an actor.
No. I hate the Gene Hackman.
The script and the directing was against him.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate his terrible wig. I hate the Kevin Spacey Lex Luthor. Mm-hmm. I definitely hate the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor.
And I still defend Jesse Eisenberg. That was not his fault. He auditioned as the Riddler. It's not his fault that they told him to do the Riddler thing as the Joker. Or as Lex Luthor. Sorry.
Now, to be fair, I didn't watch Smallville. I heard the Lex Luthor was good in that. Now, what I will say...
I did see all of Smallville.
Okay.
Lex Luthor was okay. I liked him enough, and I think that the friendship that he initially had with Clark Kent was interesting, but as who Lex Luthor actually is, I still don't think was fully realized in that series over the course of, I think it was like 5 or 7 seasons.
My favorite iteration of Lex Luthor that I've seen was in All-Star Superman, where Lex Luthor was a very fit guy, and yes, I know that oftentimes Lex Luthor is not...
Was he kind of like that Plato sort of thing where he was like, oh, body and mind are equally important? Or not Plato, I'm sorry, Aristotle, I think, was the one who said that.
Sort of like that, but like he had a conversation with Clark Kent, obviously because, you have to take the suspension of disbelief that Lex Luthor doesn't know that Clark Kent and Superman are the same person. But, like, he's having a conversation with...
Even though the one positive part of Batman v Superman was that it's so... It was so obvious I didn't even bother to explain how he knew that.
Yeah, but, like, he's having a conversation with him, and he's, like... He has, like, weights in his hands, and he's running, and he puts the weights down, and he says to Superman, you see this? I've worked for all of this. I've earned all this. My intelligence, my power... my physical body. I've done all this myself. Superman didn't have that. He was born with all of that.
Yeah.
And, like, that was really cool...
That's actually making you, like, a Magneto-style, like, approachable, sympathetic villain. Or even, like, more along the lines of, I fucking hate his name, but Syndrome kind of style villain, where it's like, dude, you're right, the heroes are all assholes. Why aren't you the hero?
Or Brainiac, who, like, a lot of stuff that you take from Thanos is actually pulled from Brainiac, where he's, like, so intelligent that, like, he doesn't view morality and things in the same way. He views things on a perspective of numbers and everything versus, like,
But, okay, here's the thing of, like, this is not a DCpointments. I'm getting a little off topic. But I think that this was the right time to do that perspective on Thanos.
Yeah.
Even though it's been a decade building up resentment against Thanos because they built him up to no avail, I actually do think it was better to hold him off and hide him until now because... nihilistic philosophy has been around for quite some time, and it's not necessarily been outside of the mainstream consciousness, but they waited until, like, nihilism and cynicism were really heavily mainstream in humor and lighthearted modes of entertainment, of public entertainment, and super easily accessible to release their villain of Thanos. Thanos didn't come out until there were already 3 seasons of Rick and Morty. Thanos didn't come out until there were already 3 specials by Bo Burnham. Thanos didn't come out until we had already had a few seasons of Louis C.K. and then the unfortunate downfall of Louis C.K. We didn't have Thanos until BoJack Horseman actually got, like, a really big, solid, outside the realm of just purely animation kind of reputation for being super dark and cynical. And we're at a point where politically, socially, the idea of nihilism, things being pointless, losing faith and interest in the ability of our social and political infrastructure to save us and carry us and give us a safety net of any kind in terms of medical care, in terms of education, the idea, or in terms of finances, in terms of the ability to actually support ourselves if we can't make a living wage, which is almost all Americans. The fact that we don't have any national policy on vacation time. The point that we get to where all of this stuff is such common knowledge that human beings talk to each other about it on a daily basis. And we can do something like watch an episode of Rick and Morty and see a butter bot be immediately assemble, serve butter, and then question, hey, what's my purpose? And being told that his purpose is to serve butter and come to the crushing realization that that's all he's expected to do for his entire existence and then give up on it. And the next time he's supposed to serve butter, he half-asses it because he's like, really? Is this all I'm good for? I'm just supposed to be a cog in the machine? This thing that you view as like not even at the same level as like a normal human being, and yet you created me and endowed me with consciousness, and I do this all of my life, and this is all I think about, and yet that's my only purpose. And being something that we can see and identify with in a split second and react to, and more importantly, even find humorous. You waited until, socially speaking, as sort of a collective consciousness in America, we all reached that point before you revealed your superhero or your supervillain whose motivation was, hey, I think the best idea is we need to split half of we need to abandon half of human life so that way then we could have more resources and more money and more food and more space for everybody to live on, for everyone to get to the point of being like, hey, I identify with that a little bit. I see that it's wrong, but that's understandable.
Yeah.
That was a long diatribe, I'm sorry. But I think it is kind of complicated and interesting and very well planned, and that's the sort of shit that yet again, the DCEU isn't doing. No part of the DCEU feels relevant or contemporary or interesting or building on the traditions or the legacies of the characters. So you're like failing on all of the fronts. You're not making it worthwhile in a social commentary sense. You're not making it contemporary. You're not updating it, and you're also not being faithful to your source material. You're just cranking shit out as fast as you can based on the last thing that you fucking saw in a movie, and that's not fair, and it's not good entertainment.
Yeah, and there was a quote that Simon Pegg said about superhero movies, and he's spoken a lot about his frustration with superhero movies, and here's what he said. It's kind of a dumbing down in a way, because taking our focus away from real-world issues, he said, films used to be about challenging emotional journeys or moral questions that might make you walk away and reevaluate how you felt about whatever. Now we're walking out of the cinema not really thinking about anything other than the fact that the Hulk had a fight with a robot. Now, quite frankly, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a lot more intelligent than the
including
DC.
Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, exactly. But that quote, I wanted to bring it up. That was a Variety quote back in 2015. But that quote seems to epitomize the DCEU. Batman v Superman. Yeah, it got to a certain point where it was like, well, this isn't going to be a great movie, but what can I watch? Batman fight Superman. And they gave us 5 minutes of that?
The interesting thing is, though, audiences are rejecting this shit. Most of the DCEU films are not making a profit. The most recent Star Wars film is not making a profit for the first time in 9 fucking movies. And even the MCEU is not immune from criticism. Well, even after Black Panther came out and Infinity Wars came out, they still couldn't convince people to see Ant-Man and Wasp based on that shitty-ass fucking trailer. People are becoming more intelligent. More people were excited to see Hereditary than Truth or Dare. People are more intelligent. People are demanding better movies. And really, the big problem is that Hollywood isn't listening to them. When viewers, common everyday people who go to the movies to see the things that they want to see, put their money where their mouth is, vote on the better movie, and Hollywood producers and executives still don't pay fucking attention because they're convinced that this data that they mined from fucking 40 years ago is still fucking relevant, and it's not.
No.
They still think that Wonder Woman is the most badass thing that any person has seen a woman do on a screen, even though that's not fucking true. We've seen Atomic Blonde, we've seen Mad Max Fury Road, we've seen the Aliens movies, we've seen the Sarah Connor Chronicle movie, we've seen the Terminator movies, we've seen Sarah Connor Chronicles, we've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we've seen Alias, we've seen Lost, we've even seen fucking Proud Mary and Jackie Brown. There's literally no reason to make a fucking Wonder Woman movie at this point. And again, this is not to piss off anybody who's a fan of Wonder Woman. If you saw something and you got something good out of Wonder Woman, you are a better person than the content creators of the Wonder Woman movie. Kudos to you. I'm not saying this to make you as a viewer feel bad.
Well, and, you know, what I would say is...
But if you were, honestly, if you were a viewer and you got something good out of Wonder Woman, you deserve better content creators than the people who made Wonder Woman.
One of the reasons why the Chris Nolan films were more successful than literally anything in the DCEU, because even Wonder Woman didn't even touch any of them.
I agree.
Not even Batman Begins. Didn't touch any of them.
I agree.
And the reason being is because they were good movies and smart movies through and through. And they knew how... And they knew that they didn't just have to... you know, it's always important to not alienate your base, which, you know, and speaking of... With Star Wars, you know, The Last Jedi tried too hard to uproot any ideas that were established in the first movie, and some people love that.
We need to be subversive, but then it's like subversive to what end?
Yeah, it tried to be so subversive, but like really to no end, and yeah, there was a backlash because of it, and you know.
And actually, like I just said, they waited to use Thanos as a villain to the point where like very immediately accessible mainstream media was at a nihilistic, cynical standpoint with its humor before release, like putting him out as like a full-fledged character. Last Jedi did the same thing, and it still didn't succeed. And in fact, it was more harmful to the franchise than all three of the prequel movies.
Yeah, because
that's insane.
That The Last Jedi split the franchise. You know, regardless of what your stance on the movie is, that movie split the franchise, and Episode 9 will be proof of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That being said...
Well, I think Han Solo has already been proof of that, but yes.
That being said, you need to make strong, intelligent movies, and...
They don't have to be intelligent, though.
Yeah,
there are so many dumb, fun movies that we watch, and we're like, yes, I wanted to watch a dumb, fun movie, and that's what this movie gave me.
Rampage.
So, Rampage is the best one this year.
Rampage, yeah, because it was dumb, it was fun, I knew exactly what I was getting into, and, like, I enjoyed every single minute of that movie.
I actually really like Jurassic World 2. But I will admit that the weaker moments of it were when it was attempting to be intelligent and didn't work because it's a dumb, fun dinosaur movie. When it was just committed to being a dumb, fun dinosaur movie, that's when the movie worked. You can totally be a stupid, turn your brain off at the door, chomp down on popcorn, be entertained movie. I have literally no problem with that concept. That movie needs to exist. For the love of God, we do need escapism in our movies and our TV. My problem is when people, particularly critics, excuse stupid movies attempting to be intelligent as being dumb, fun movies when they are not dumb or fun. They're just stupid and ignorant. And that's and boring, more importantly. That's a very, very big difference.
Yeah.
And the DCEU ends up in that camp of being stupid and boring and not dumb fun. If the DCEU was more dumb fun than Marvel, like the MCU, I don't know that I would be able to bitch for it as long as I do. It's the fact that they're trying to be quote-unquote intelligent about it, and they're trying to be like quote-unquote fan service about it, And I do realize that I use quote-unquote air quotes way too much. I do.
Yeah, you do.
No, I definitely do. But the reason being is that I'm showing how the producers and the writers and the directors are fucking phony and they're fake and they're not putting enough thought or faith in their products and they're not giving us the shit that we deserve to have.
Yeah. So, after all that being said, what do you think of the DCEU? What do you think of Titans? What do you think of Aquaman? What do you think of Shazam? And what are your thoughts on the Wonder Woman movie that has come out and the Wonder Woman movie that will come out?
Do you think it's a DCpointment? Or do you think that it's a beacon of hope for the future? And if you do, don't just say so, like, give some reason and thinking. I never say this shit on the podcast in order to make viewers feel bad. The reason why I say this stuff is because it is important to be critical and thoughtful and put your thoughts out there against the content creators of stuff, because that's the only way people get better. The best thing I can point out is Rap Critic actually put out a great video. It was oh my god, I can't remember who it was. It was a Future song that he had reviewed, and I can't remember what the name of the song is, but it was one of Mask Off or something like that. But he specifically did like and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because please go support him. He's a brilliant content creator on YouTube. I love his stuff. Definitely see the video that I'm talking about. I think it's Future's Mask Off. It was a review he had done. And he sort of framed it as like him talking to someone who was talking to him in the comments, sort of like a back and forth dual personality thing. And he specifically brought up like, hey, I'm not trying to make people who like these songs feel bad for liking the songs. I'm trying to hold content creators responsible for their stuff, because when you hold content creators, whether they're musicians or filmmakers or TV people, whether they're writers, directors, actors, producers, whether they're any of these people, when you publicly hold them accountable for their stuff, they will work harder to make better material. And one of the things that he brought up, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but it is a good example, is he brought up Jay-Z. How if it wasn't for the mass audience criticism of his album Magna Carta Holy Grail, and I cringe to bring this up, but it is true, Beyonce's Lemonade album, that he gave total approval of before it was produced. But if it wasn't for those two elements, he wouldn't have created 444, an album where he was able to own his own weakness, to explore the things that he attempted to explore in Magna Carta Holy Grail in a better, more explicit and well thought out way. If it wasn't for the fact that people called him out on his fucking bullshit. You know, if it wasn't for people saying, hey, it's bullshit that hip-hop is super homophobic, he wouldn't have come out with a song saying, hey, he still loves his mom even though his mom's a lesbian. You know, things like that. I never want to make people who like Wonder Woman or like Batman v Superman or like the DCEU or like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or like Arrival or like any of the movies I don't like, I don't want you to feel bad for liking it. If anything, I have more respect for people who like more media than they dislike. Yeah. That's good on you for being able to see the best in the stuff. But that I say this shit against the content creators.
Now, that being said, I also... One thing that I really don't like about YouTube as a platform is it seems that a lot of content creators half-ass reviews because they don't want to create any controversy, animosity, and all that kind of stuff. So they'll be like, it's okay, you know, blah, blah, it was kind of good, it was kind of bad. You know, like, we see a lot of content creators do that kind of stuff. And, yeah, we're a little bit more honest about our opinions. And, yes, we know that's going to create more downvotes. That's going to create more animosity sometimes in the comment section. I'm okay with that because I would rather be honest with you and tell you my thoughts on something. Now, if somebody has a different opinion on something, that's wonderful. But I will validate your opinion if you will validate mine.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Just be honest with why you like what you like. There's no problem with that. But definitely, like, feel free to disagree with us. We're not fucking offended if you disagree with us. There are plenty of times where I'm like, okay, for example, I don't like Breaking Bad. And it's not at all because it's a bad program.
And Breaking Bad is my favorite show of all time.
It is totally your favorite show of all time. And I don't disagree with the concept that it is a great show. It's not my taste. And there's nothing I can do to change that. But I'm not going to try to change people's opinion just because I don't like the show. Especially because I can acknowledge objectively there's nothing wrong with this. In most cases. There are some nitpicks I have. But those are nitpicks. In general, nothing wrong with the show. If you fucking like Breaking Bad, like Breaking Bad. Totally. But when I rail against Wonder Woman, when I rail against the DCEU, I'm not railing against fans. I'm railing against content creators who owe it to the fans to give them something better.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to what we're seeing, I get that some people might like and defend it and stuff like that, and if you like it and defend it, that's wonderful. My frustration is I know we can have better.
Because we've had better.
And that's what I expect from movies nowadays. So, let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you for listening.